Chapter 821. Yang Qing looked indifferently at Zhang Lai, silently saying, "After Tingting died, I fell into a very strange state. On one hand I was furious and wanted to tear you to pieces. On the other hand I felt my mind was unprecedentedly clear and calm. Many things that I couldn't understand before gradually became clear. Zhang Lai, you are the main culprit, the source of everything. I naturally have to find you for revenge, both for Tingting and for those who died in vain." Yang Qing's tone was calm as if she was talking about something that had nothing to do with her. "I once thought that no matter what, I would protect Tingting. She herself is a victim. The debt of blood on her body will be borne by me." The Qin dynasty, Celerita's sword sect people came to Kunlun Mountain. I was willing to die as an apology to the world, only hoping to exchange for Tingting's safety. Back then if you didn't scheme for the Tying water on me, Tingting and the people in the water cloud cave wouldn't have died. Yang Qing looked calmly at Zhang Lai. Now that Tingting is gone, the grievances of the countless people who died in vain may not disappear. The grievances of the living also can't be completely eliminated. Before Tingting died, she was filled with guilt. I was thinking that in the future I would work hard to cultivate, prove my soul and obtain longevity. Not to be free and unfettered, but to practice medicine and save people. Tingting poisoned hundreds of thousands, millions of people, so I saved hundreds of thousands, millions of people. My merits and demerits definitely can't be offset like this, but at least it's better than doing nothing and only seeking death. If 100,000, a million people are too little, then 10 million, 10 million. Walking like this, when I look back, at least I won't regret saving the lives of countless people." Zhang Lai looked at Yang Qing. After a long time he laughed lightly. "Oh, I wonder how long you can last." Yang Qing's face also showed a trace of a smile, only it was incomparably cold. "Until I die. As for you, after I kill your physical body, I will imprison your soul and make you do good and save people with me, walking down this path." The smile on Zhang Lai's face suddenly froze, slowly disappearing. His eyes exploded with a shocking light as he stared at Yang Qing. Yang Qing's one black and one white eyes only had an almost numb calmness. The light in Zhang Lai's eyes slowly disappeared, his eyelids drooping as he said lightly, "Then you will die today. I will not carry the heavy shackles on my body again." He was now heavily injured. His cultivation was much weaker than when he was at his peak. Surrounded by Yang Qing, Yu Hongyan and Kong Nanhua, if he wanted to break out he could only fight to the death. Zhang Lai's left shoulder's wound had been forcefully stopped by him. At this moment the flesh suddenly wriggled, and a small green silkworm popped its head out. The green silkworm had a strange appearance. Its body was covered with fish scales, flashed in Qing's Yang Chen Qing. The green silkworm flew out from Zhang Lai's body, and floated in the air in front of him. Zhang Lai smiled and said, "You want to practice medicine and help the world. My green-scaled silkworm that can ward off all poisons must be very useful, right? You and have Qing, you Wang Lin you and you and you and you, and you." Titi amidst his laughter, Zhang Lai let go of the army destroyer monarch halberd, allowing it to hover in the air beside him. Then he reached out with his right hand and grabbed the green-scaled silkworm. Gripping it tightly, Zhang Lai tilted his head slightly and said with a chuckle, "Since none of you three cultivate poison techniques, I won't need this to fight you." Yang Qing looked at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, "You have lived with the green-scaled silkworm for a long time. As long as your flesh is refined, the effect will not be too bad." Yu Hongyan, who had been silent ever since they met, held the demonic dragon halberd in one hand, and took out a pure white jade bracelet with the other. The space spirit jade bracelet was a treasure given to her by Zhang Lai years ago. Yu Hongyan opened his left hand, grabbed the space spirit jade bracelet, and rushed toward Zhang Lai. Zhang Lai's eyes flickered as he looked at the jade bracelet. The smile on his face disappeared as he fell silent. In the next moment, Yu Hongyan exerted force in his 5 fingers. In the silence, the pure white jade bracelet turned into powder and scattered in the wind. In a flash of purple light, Yu Hongyan, who was wearing the 7 kills star armor, was already charging at Zhang Lai. A faint sigh seemed to resound between heaven and earth. Amidst the sigh, Zhang Lai gripped the army destroyer monarch halberd tightly and single-handedly swung it at Yu Hongyan. There was no Xidigarba true brilliance, no lunar true water, no infinite astral baleful energy. There was no grand divine brilliant spear, no lunar 13 halberds, no ferocious ghost burst spear, no void shattering divine spear, no seamless killing spear, no four symbols divine spear. There was only black flames dancing in the sky. It was the collision of the two divine spears of destruction from the same source. The black flames exploded as if putting an end to the past. In the next moment, Yu Hongyan turned his spear. He held the dragon demonic halberd in one hand, and clenched his other hand into a fist. Like a huge hammer, he smashed it down at Zhang Lai. The exuberant fist will almost solidified. Heaven, earth, wind, thunder, water, fire, mountain, and swamp, all 8 types of phenomena appeared at the same time, combining with each other. They were constantly fusing with each other, growing at an almost endless speed. At the same time as it grew, it collapsed and disintegrated continuously, increasing to an incomparably terrifying level. 8 trigrams sky collapsing hammer. The purple light on the 7 kills star armor flickered continuously. The wild killing intent and evil aura were poured into Yu Hongyan's fist, causing its power to increase further. Zhang Lai held his army-breaching monarch halberd horizontally and blocked Yu Hongyan's fist. Even the army-breaching monarch halberd trembled violently. He sent a flying kick at Yu Hongyan. Yu Hongyan, who was wearing the 7 kill star armor, lowered his shoulder and used the armor on his shoulder to block Zhang Lai's attack. Immediately after, the demonic dragon halberd drew a mysterious trajectory. The dark red boundless astral chi, which looked like wind and mist at the same time, turned into a crescent moon that rolled in the night sky and fell towards the horizon. One of Yu Hongyan's seamless killing spear falling moon. Zhang Lai held the army-breaching monarch halberd in a reverse grip, and used the end of the dark green halberd to sweep up the Xidigarba true brilliance, and knock it against Yu Hongyan's falling moon spear. The power from both sides exploded and forced both of them to retreat. Yu Hongyan was really forced to retreat while Zhang Lai made use of the rebounding force to increase his speed and charge towards Kong Nanhua. He had no intention of fighting to the death with Yu Hongyan, nor did he attack Yangqing. Instead, he targeted Kong Nanhua. Kong Nanhua's Ganges River stretched across the horizon, and was the real barrier and obstacle that blocked his way. Once he broke through Kong Nanhua's spell, he could advance and retreat at will. When the time came, he would also have more space to move around. Kong Nanhua looked at Zhang Lai coldly. Light flashed above his head and a huge figure appeared. It was indomitable. One of its hands was holding onto the rope-like quicksand of Ganges River, while the other hand was holding onto a shining golden greatsword. After revealing the Dharma idol of heaven and earth, Kong Nanhua put his palms together. The black and yellow heavenly river formed by the sand of Ganges River, and the primordial true water did not dissipate. Instead, a strong wind suddenly blew. It was formless but extremely sharp, as if it could destroy everything. 9 heavens formless astral wind. Other than the 9 heavens formless astral wind, golden flames suddenly burst out. The piercing light of the true sunfire illuminated the world. Wherever the astral wind passed, the golden true sunfire seemed to scatter and scatter. However, it caused the invisible astral wind to be coated with a layer of dazzling gold. In the world, there were countless huge golden sword-like astral winds that slashed down towards Zhang Lai. Zhang Lai's eyes burst with an astonishing brilliance. He used the 13 lunar halberds. The army destroyer monarch halberd in his hands seemed to turn into rays of green light dancing in the air. Each ray of green light seemed to have collided with a golden astral wind. The ferocious army vanquishing monarch halberd erupted with astonishing power, shattering the astral winds one after another. Just as each astral wind was shattered, endless golden flames burst out from within, exploding one after another. Layers of dark green lunar true water surged out, blocking the solar true fire. Zhang Lai used the 13 lunar halberds. First, he used a defensive stance to block the most violent wave of Kong Nanhua's astral winds. Then he switched from defense to offense. The blazing green true earth treasury flame spread out, and the Grand Order Divine Glory spear fiercely attacked Kong Nanhua. Wherever the spear passed, it destroyed the remaining astral winds. Zhang Lai himself was also attacked by some of the astral winds, leaving terrible wounds on his body. But the magic treasure army destroyer monarch halberd flashed with a dark green light. A hole appeared in the sky above his head. The power of the army destroyer star in the Milky Way allowed Zhang Lai to kill his way to Kong Nanhua. Kong Nanhua's expression didn't change. The sand of the Ganges River and the primordial true water gathered in front of him, forming the Ganges immemorial shield. Amidst the explosion, Zhang Lai's spear directly punched a huge hole in Kong Nanhua's Ganges immemorial shield. But in the end, it didn't completely break through Kong Nanhua's Ganges immemorial shield. Zhang Lai's heart sank. At this moment, his injuries were indeed too severe. Even with the army destroyer monarch halberd in hand, he couldn't do anything to Kong Nanhua. Besides the Ganges immemorial shield's powerful defense, Kong Nanhua also had a powerful attack like the astral winds. After breaking through the astral winds, Zhang Lai's spear had the momentum of an arrow at the end of its flight. At this moment, it would be difficult to break through the Ganges immemorial shield. Besides the shield's sharpness, I also have to add in the spear's tip. He also suffered heavy injuries before, otherwise he would be even stronger. If everyone is in peak condition and gives him a suitable magic treasure, even with the army destroyer monarch halberd in hand, I'm afraid I won't be able to win quickly. Zhang Lai took a deep breath. Right now he was also an arrow at the end of its flight. If it was just Kong Nanhua alone, he might not be able to win. As he thought of this, the boundless Ksitigarbha true brilliance continued to burn. Zhang Lai continued to increase his strength, hoping to break through Kong Nanhua's defense in the shortest time possible. But at this moment, a warning suddenly sounded in his heart. The void behind him suddenly broke apart. Yu Hongyan's spear was faster than lightning, aiming straight for the vital point on his back. Heaven Law 4 Elephant Divine Spear, Lightning Elephant Spear, Starry Galloping Lightning. After being forced back by Zhang Lai, Yu Hongyan forcefully suppressed his surging blood and qi. Without stopping, he struck out with his fastest spear, aiming for Zhang Lai's back. Zhang Lai had the army destroyer monarch halberd in hand. Even though he was heavily injured, his strength was still extremely strong. After forcing Yu Hongyan back, he struck out with a series of killer moves, instantly arriving in front of Kong Nanhua. But after being slightly hindered by Kong Nanhua, Yu Hongyan had already arrived behind him. His speed was much faster than he had expected. With a stifled groan, Zhang Lai could only give up on the idea of continuing to attack Kong Nanhua in order to break out of the encirclement. He wanted to stabilize his position first, and defend against Yu Hongyan's starry galloping lightning god spear that was as fast as light. With regards to the surprise attack, Zhang Lai was not completely unprepared. After all, Yang Qing was still at the side. But at this moment, he was being forced into a difficult situation by Kong Nanhua and Yu Hongyan. His heart rapidly sank. Yang Qing. As expected, Yang Qing had already transformed into a black water person. The surrounding azure fog and pale white light surged together, staring at him with a pair of emotionless eyes. In the next moment, Yang Qing clasped her hands together and pushed forward. A pale white light had already enveloped Zhang Lai. Solitary Tying. Chapter 822. Yang Qing performed the Tying entering solitude and manifested the desolate Yin realm. His entire body turned into a waterman formed by the Tying true water. Then the dark green Tying true water turned black. A dark blue fog floated on the surface of his body, and a pale white light flashed. Since the start of the battle, Yang Qing had not made a move. He watched the battle coldly. The fire in his heart was burning fiercely, almost driving him into madness. However, his mind was as calm as 10,000 years old ice, seizing the most suitable opportunity. If he did not make a move, then he would make Zhang Lai doomed eternally. Now was the most suitable opportunity. After Yang Qing entered the desolate Yin realm, he performed the Tying solitary slumber. The pale white light covered Zhang Lai. Zhang Lai suddenly felt his vision go black, and everything else in his consciousness disappeared. Kong Nanhua, the vast river, and the solar gale were all gone. And so were Yu Hongyan and the 7 kill star armor, who were so close to Jihao that they could easily tear a hole in his body. Heaven and earth disappeared, and the sound of the piercingly cold wind instantly stopped. In Zhang Lai's mind, there was only the precise dark night left. The pale moon in the night sky was like a terrifying and strange giant eye, quietly watching him. If Zhang Lai was in his peak state, Yang Qing, who was only at the early stage of yuanying, might not be able to use the Tine solitary slumber. But now, Zhang Lai was injured, and facing the pincer attack from Kong Nanhua and Yu Hongyan, he was immediately hit. Yang Qing's Tine solitary slumber would cause the victim to fall into an eternal slumber, where the soul would be separated. The soul would be assimilated and devoured by the power of Yin, turning into nothingness. At this moment, even if the body was dismembered, the victim would not be able to wake up. Zhang Lai's body trembled violently. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and the wound on his left shoulder opened up again. But he was a primordial spirit expert after all. His martial will was strong, and his primordial spirit and body were combined. After falling into the effect of the Tine solitary slumber, he was still able to forcefully break free. His consciousness got rid of the assimilation of the power of Yin, and his soul became one again. The army destroyer halberd shook, and Zhang Lai shattered the pale white light that surrounded him. Qi. Zhang Lai looked down at the tip of the demonic dragon halberd protruding out of his chest. The halberd was stained with blood, and the dark purple runes stirred in his body. After being disrupted by Yang Qing's solitary lunar slumber, Zhang Lai lost the opportunity to deal with Yu Hongyan's Star Rush Lightning Quick Spear. This spear that was faster than lightning directly pierced through his body, causing him to suffer an unprecedented injury. The 7 kills star armor on Yu Hongyan's body shone with a purple light. In the starry sky above his head, in addition to the alcade, the starlight of the 7 kills star was also constantly flashing. Zhang Lai let out a muffled groan as he spun his army vanquisher monarch halberd and stabbed it at Yu Hongyan, who was behind him. Yu Hongyan's eyebrows, which were like thin swords, were raised. Her almond-shaped eyes were wide open, with flames flickering in them. Facing Zhang Lai's powerful counterattack, she clenched her teeth and used the 7 kill star armor to block it. As for the demonic dragon halberd in her hand, it emitted a buzzing sound. Formless astral winds swept out from within Zhang Lai's body. 9 heavens formless astral gale. Yu Hongyan's divine spear of 4 symbols, wind elephant spear, astral wind pierces the heavens. This spear did not take the boundless astral baleful Qi's strangeness and fierceness, but rather refined the power of the 9 heavens formless astral wind. It needed an unstoppable swift and fierce destructive power to forcibly cut through the opponent's defense. And at this moment, a formless astral wind that was like a sharp blade that could cleave the heavens erupted from within Zhang Lai's body. That momentum was about to directly dismember Zhang Lai. Zhang Lai's eyes flashed as he roared. A leather pouch on his body opened up and countless black wind spirits rushed out, pouncing towards Yu Hongyan. These spirits weren't very powerful, and the way they were refined was very crude. However, the blood drained from Yu Hongyan's face, and he turned extremely pale. He was protected by Kong Nanhua's transcendence energy, but Zhao Huan, who had been watching the whole battle, was inside Kong Nanhua's transcendence energy space. When she saw this scene, she let out a howl like a wounded beast. Even though it was only a flash, but he could clearly see those grimacing faces in pain. Impressively, they were the faces of the people of the Society of the Strong Gale back then. Among them were even his father and mother. Their souls were also shockingly incomplete, and after being refined by Zhang Lai's secret technique, their hopes of reincarnation had already been severed. Either they would be ghosts forever, or their souls would scatter and scatter, turning to dust. Yu Hongyan's face was deathly pale, but the flames in her eyes burned even brighter. Facing those hungry ghosts that pounced to bite her body, she forcefully endured and did not make any resistance, allowing these hungry ghosts to attack her. But the power of the demonic dragon halberd in her hand increased by another level. The power of the astral wind through the deity spear was activated to the extreme. The pair of master and disciple almost simultaneously let out a low roar. The power of the army vanquishing halberd and the demonic dragon halberd exploded together. The two simultaneously flew backwards. The demonic dragon halberd was finally pulled out from Zhang Lai's back, bringing with it a rain of blood. At this moment, Zhang Lai's abdomen was already a mess of flesh and blood. The qi and blood of a primordial spirit martial artist that was as vigorous as the blazing sun was extremely weak, as if the sun was setting in the west. At this moment, whether it was the wound on Zhang Lai's left shoulder or the wound on his abdomen, they were all being healed by a large amount of dark green lunar true water. If not for the fact that he had used the dark green true water to strengthen his body, and now that he had the dark green true water to help him recover, Zhang Lai might not have been able to hold on. Other than these two major injuries, most of the other minor injuries had already been healed by the dark green true water. But at this moment, Zhang Lai's injuries were too severe, and he was using all his strength to heal his left shoulder, chest and abdomen. As a result, the other wounds on his body opened up again, dripping with blood. Yu Hongyan was not in a good state either. Zhang Lai's near-suicidal counterattack had been blocked by her 7 kills star armor. Although the army vanquishing halberd had not truly pierced through the 7 kills star armor, it had still injured her. For a moment, she felt as if her internal organs had shifted positions. Fresh blood flowed from the corner of Yu Hongyan's mouth, but the pain on her body could not compare to the pain and rage in her heart that was dripping blood. Zhang Lai. Yu Hongyan glared at Zhang Lai, her eyes overflowing with killing intent. Zhang Lai opened his mouth and blood gushed out, but he still grinned and said, "Don't you all like to follow me? Don't you all like to rely on me? Don't you all like to fight side by side with me? Right now we are all fighting side by side, aren't we?" Grains of sparkling sand flashed on the surface of Yu Hongyan's body, collecting the vengeful spirits one by one. Kang Nanhua's face was ashen. Without saying a word, the huge heaven and earth avatar waved its hand, and thousands of solar astral winds blasted towards Zhang Lai. Zhang Lai barely managed to block it, but suddenly, a sense of danger appeared in his heart again. A ferocious aura surrounded him. Yang Qing, who had executed the solar annihilation transformation and manifested the solar annihilation extremity, turned into a white flaming man. Ferocious black smoke and black light flowed continuously around his body. 9 rays of black light floated up and down, sometimes turning into 9 dragon shadows, and sometimes turning into 9 blazing suns. 9 suns annihilation. Martial artists' chi and blood were masculine, and the pressure that this spell brought to Zhang Lai was even more terrifying than solitary lunar slumber. A true killing blow. Zhang Lai mustered his remaining courage and condensed his martial will, manifesting the light and shadow of the green sea of fire world. The boundless Xitigarbha true brilliance was condensed like the heavy earth, and the Grand Order Divine Glory Spear welcomed Yang Qing's 9 suns annihilation. 9 blazing suns rose, and 9 dragon shadows descended. It was like a terrifying apocalyptic scene, suppressing the green sea of fire to the point where it was on the verge of collapse. And at this time Kang Nanhua's solar astral winds blasted over again. Under the combined force of Yang Qing's 9 suns annihilation, Zhang Lai finally couldn't hold on any longer, and the green earth suddenly cracked. 9 dragon shadows soared up, like hidden dragons ascending to the sky. 9 blazing suns descended, like the sun bombarding the earth. The ferocious power landed on Zhang Lai's body. Zhang Lai let out a miserable groan, and finally couldn't hold on any longer. His body exploded like firecrackers from head to toe, and 9 bloody holes appeared all over his body. His entire body was on the verge of shattering. In the midst of the flames, a purple-robed, red-haired figure suddenly appeared. A spear swept up rolling thunder, and with the force of a thunderbolt, it struck Zhang Lai's body one last time. In the midst of the thunder, Zhang Lai's primordial spirit that had been tempered hundreds and thousands of times completely exploded, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Not even his bones remained. Yu Hongyan's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the cloud of blood mist. The blood mist twisted violently, and there seemed to be light flashing within it, trying to reassemble the flesh and blood, but to no avail. That was Zhang Lai's primordial spirit that had been fused with his body. But at this moment, not only was his body destroyed, his primordial spirit was also heavily injured. Only a wisp of his primordial spirit was left, almost like a wandering soul. Yu Hongyan was about to kill Zhang Lai with a single spear strike when Yang Qing walked forward. 4th senior apprentice sister, don't be fooled. Right now, all he wants is death. At this time, the void suddenly split open, and a white-haired youth with a cold expression walked out. His face was slightly pale, and there was a faint trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. The white-haired youth was precisely Wang Lin. He glanced at the blood mist, and with a wave of his hand, the underworld pearl appeared. Mana directly sucked in the blood mist as well. Within the blood mist, Zhang Lai's unwilling roar of anger could be faintly heard. Wang Lin's Dharma of heaven and earth appeared, stretching out 8 arms and holding onto the army vanquishing King halberd together, fiercely suppressing this primordial spirit magic treasure. Yang Qing looked at the underworld pearl and said, "Third senior brother, I'll be troubling you." Kong Nanhua waved his hand, and the sand that had wrapped around the vengeful souls of the Society of the Strong Gale all floated into the underworld pearl. The sand disappeared, and the vengeful souls pounced toward Zhang Lai's wisp of primordial spirit with angry roars, surrounding him and continuously tearing at him. The silhouette of the primordial spirit transformed into Zhang Lai's appearance. He wanted to turn around and devour these vengeful souls, but he was restrained by Wang Lin's underworld true water. He could only watch as the many vengeful souls pounced and gnawed at him, and he couldn't help but let out waves of miserable cries. Wang Lin's voice came from beside his ear. "Even though they can't reincarnate, I can try to use a secret technique to relieve their pain. At that time those who don't want to become ghosts can return to heaven and earth. If they are willing to stay in the world of the living, I, Xianmen Tianzong, also have a place for them to stay. Even though it takes time to figure out the secret technique, I already have an idea in my heart, and the day of success is not far away." Kong Nanhua stared at Zhang Lai inside the underworld pearl and said coldly, "Zhang Lai, as for you, just obediently follow Yang Qing and practice medicine everywhere to atone for your sins. Normally you travel the world to atone for your sins, and when you follow Yang Qing back to the sect, you will serve everyone in the Society of the Strong Gale. This is what you deserve." "I definitely don't want to return to those days of the past." Zhang Lai lost his composure and roared, but then he was drowned by the crowd of ghosts. Chapter 823. Even though he was suppressed by the true water of the underworld, even though he was heavily injured, right now Zhang Lai's remnant soul is still not something that the low-level hungry ghosts transformed from the people of the Society of the Strong Gale can devour or kill. It's just that being restricted by the underworld pearl, Zhang Lai is also unable to resist the biting of the hungry ghosts. The taste of being gnawed on by a group of ghosts is naturally not pleasant. It is a cruel torture rarely seen in the world. But looking at these ghost faces pouncing in front of him, Zhang Lai only felt his mind go into a trance, looking at these once familiar faces. One scene after another continuously flashed through his mind. His parents died resisting the invasion of the Great Zhou dynasty. Before his relatives died they tightly clasped his hand, warning in a hoarse voice, "Restore the country. Revenge." Leading a group of Snowgale country immigrants, moving from place to place, fighting, fleeing, hiding. Some died, and there was also the birth of a new generation of children. That Xiao Huan who looked at him with a gaze of hatred and fear before, was once captured together with his parents by the Zhou people, and was even personally rescued by him. Zhang Lai struggled to twist his neck, looking at Yang Qing's face that was calm to the point of numbness. The scene of Fang Ting struggling in the sea of fire in the cloud-water cave back then appeared in his mind. Her body was completely destroyed, her soul shattered, but she still kept repeating a person's name. The smile on the black-clothed youth's face disappeared, becoming indifferent. "Senior apprentice brother Yang? He's the person you love deeply, you don't want to be separated from him no matter what." The already shattered soul of the girl's consciousness was completely blurred. Only the obsession rooted in the bottom of her heart prompted her to reply in a daze. "As long as I cannot be separated from senior apprentice brother Yang, even if I never reincarnate, I'm willing." The scene in front of Zhang Lai changed once again. The face of a red-haired youth appeared in front of him, incomparably illusory, yet incomparably clear. The youth's sword-like eyebrows reached his temples, his facial features were handsome, as if he was fearless. Zhang Lai's gaze dimmed. That was his lifelong friend, brother, Yu Hongfeng, who built the Society of the Strong Gale with him back then, but in the end died young in order to protect his compatriots. Yu Hongfeng's face gradually shook, turning into the appearance of a crimson-haired baby girl. As time went by, the baby girl gradually became a 6 or 7-year-old girl, her face full of distress, childishly complaining to him that her eyebrows were too straight, too thick, and too tough. Gradually, the little girl grew up day by day and faced the same fate as him. She followed closely behind him and faced the dangers of blood and fire at a young age. The little girl gradually grew into a young lady. Her cultivation talent was extraordinary, and he carefully taught her the Great Destruction True Fire technique and the Great Destruction God Spear. Accompanying each other day and night, in life and death, Zhonglai did not know when his heartstrings began to tremble towards this young girl, who was both a comrade in arms and a disciple. The young girl also had a different kind of feeling towards this half-master who was like a mountain that held up a blue sky for her and her compatriots. However, in the face of being hunted by the great Zhou dynasty, the two of them buried their love deep in their hearts. The only thing that was unclear was the space spirit jade bracelet. And now, that jade bracelet was finally crushed by Yu Hongyan with his own hands. Actually, it should have been broken long ago. In Zhonglai's mind, the scene of him killing the people of the Society of the Strong Gale, and Yu Hongyan watching helplessly without being able to stop it appeared in his mind. The young girl's eyes were filled with disbelief. In that instant, her shock was more than anger and sorrow. Everything flashed through Zhonglai's mind, then he regained consciousness. Looking at the hungry ghosts that kept biting him, thinking of his future, Zhonglai felt a strong sense of unwillingness. He would rather die than return to the life of being shackled and controlled by others. As expected, I love Hongyan, but I love myself even more. Otherwise, how could I hurt her like this? Although I didn't kill her, I left a bloody scar on her heart. Zhonglai closed his eyes. Cowardly and cruel, selfish and repressed, this is me. The next moment, the ghosts dispersed, but Zhonglai's broken soul was also swallowed by the Yellow Springs true water. The dim yellow true water of the Yellow Springs gradually turned black, continuously seeping into Zhonglai's broken soul, dyeing it black and suppressing it at the bottom of the Yellow Springs River within the Yellow Springs Pearl. After returning to the mountain, after everything has been settled, I will naturally hand this person over to you. If you want to travel the world, it's best to wait until Master returns to the vast 1,000 worlds from his death seclusion. Wang Lin put away the Yellow Springs Pearl. The image of Emperor Yan's hall appeared above his head, taking in all the hungry ghosts that the members of the Society of the Strong Gale had transformed into. Yang Qing clasped her hands towards Wang Lin. Thank you, third senior brother. His expression was as calm as before, his gaze became much gentler, but there was no joy and ecstasy of revenge. Yang Qing opened her right palm. Looking down, she saw a seemingly ordinary grain of sand, silently placed in the center of her palm. On the other side, after the battle ended, Yu Hongyan directly sat down cross-legged in the air, silently regulating her breathing. 3 people attacked Zhonglai. She was the only one injured. As the main attacker, she directly faced the majority of Zhonglai's attacks, and also endured Zhonglai's counterattacks. Even though Zhonglai was already heavily injured, and Yu Hongyan had the protection of the 7 kills star armor, but the army destroyer Imperial Halberd was extremely domineering in Zhonglai's hands, and still injured her. Even though Yu Hongyan was concentrating on regulating her breathing, but her eyes were clearly somewhat dazed, and her mind was elsewhere. She was somewhat unable to come back to her senses after getting her revenge. Kong Nanhua's expression was calm. Even though he had damaged his own Yuanying, and fought with Zhonglai with an injured body, making him look somewhat weak, but in Kong Nanhua's eyes, there was an unprecedented brilliance. In the sky, there seemed to be a brilliance enveloping Kong Nanhua, making him faintly merge with the great way of heaven and earth. Today, to him, was a day of release from the shackles that had been shackled for many years. Even though his mana and spirit were weak, his Taoist heart was no longer dusty. He had never been so close to the great way of heaven and earth, as if he could touch it. If he could recover Yuanying's injuries, Kong Nanhua could even directly break through that threshold, and his primordial spirit was in sight. Wang Lin looked at Kong Nanhua. Congratulations, Mr. Kong. Kong Nanhua looked at Yang Qing, and sighed slightly. If he had to say, there was still one last shadow in his heart, and that was the guilt towards Yang Qing and Fang Ting. Back then, when facing the extremely weak Zhonglai, and Yang Qing and the others who were trapped in the Scarlet Ground God-killing array, Kong Nanhua's heart had been in a struggle, but in the end he successfully distinguished his own path. and finally chose to let Zhonglai go, and rushed to the scarlet ground god-killing array to save them. Zhonglai, ice and charcoal are not the same stove. I am different from you. The powerful words made Zhonglai slightly dazed at that time, and he watched Kong Nanhua go to the scarlet ground god-killing array. But unfortunately, Feng Ting chose to commit suicide, and Kong Nanhua was still a step too late. Looking at Yang Qing, who had given up, Kong Nanhua still felt guilty in his heart, even though it was not his responsibility. Kong Nanhua shook his head slightly and calmed his emotions, and asked Wang Lin, "What's the situation on your side?" Wang Lin said, "One of the underworld hall's 10 Yama kings, the disobedient king, who is also Sikongyu, was killed by me and King Chujiang together. His Dharma treasure, the fierce spirit temple, was taken away by King Chujiang, and I suffered some light injuries, so it's not worth mentioning." He paused for a moment, and his white hair spread out behind him, fluttering in the breeze. Wang Lin's gaze turned slightly cold. "However, I keep feeling that Sikongyu is a little strange. I suspect that he faked his death like Zhonglai, but I can't be sure. If he really faked his death, his technique is more brilliant than Zhonglai's. He's also more willing to use his capital." Kong Nanhua pondered for a moment. "According to what you said, his Dharma treasure, the fierce spirit temple, is a transformation-grade Dharma treasure. Sikongyu doesn't really care about spirit ghosts, and most of his life's efforts and resources are probably invested in this Dharma treasure." Kong Nanhua's gaze slightly narrowed. If he really faked his death, then his scheme is not small. Wang Lin turned to look at Yang Qing and Yu Hongyan. Seeing that his junior brother and junior sister had regained their composure, he immediately said, "A storm is brewing, and we need to immediately return to Yujing Mountain and focus on dealing with the difficulties that might appear next." Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing nodded together. Third senior brother is right. Outsiders all knew that Lin Feng's third disciple, Wang Lin, was cold, silent, ruthless, and bloodthirsty. However, Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, and the others who had been with Wang Lin for a long time knew that this third senior brother of theirs was actually a rather scheming person. It's just that he didn't speak easily, but he always hit the nail on the head when he said it. This time, Xianmen Tianzong and his group were ambushed by Sikongyu and Zhonglai from the Underworld Hall. Whether it was because of personal grudges or the Underworld Hall's intention to probe Xianmen Tianzong, the result could be said to be a failure. Other than a group of Yuanying stage cultivators, the Underworld Hall also lost King of Disobedience, Sikongyu, and King of Qingguang, Zhonglai, the two hall masters. The losses could be said to be extremely heavy. Although there was internal strife between Sikongyu, Zhonglai, and King Chujiang, the final result was a complete victory for Xianmen Tianzong. He even seized Zhonglai's army vanquishing halberd and another magic weapon, the Yin Yang Soul Morning Drum. The only loss was Feng Ting's misfortune, and some subsequent troubles caused by the previous massacre of the city by Poison Ghost. Overall, Xianmen Tianzong could not be considered to have suffered a loss. Zhonglai was killed, and most of his resentment was vented. Under such circumstances, it was reasonable that Xianmen Tianzong did not take the initiative to find trouble with the Underworld Hall for the time being. There was no need for Lin Feng to come forward to deal with it, and the outside world naturally could not see through Xianmen Tianzong's actual situation at this time. However, there would always be people with ulterior motives who would have evil thoughts again. Therefore, Wang Lin and the others did not stay for long and returned to Mount Yujing in the Kunlun mountain range as soon as possible. On one hand, it would reduce the risk of their group, and on the other hand, it was also to return to Mount Yujing to strengthen their own sect's strength. Xianmen Tianzong and the others were flying in the void, but at this moment, the void suddenly opened up. Countless Buddhist lights lit up, and the vast sound of Sanskrit lingered in their ears. 5 monks rushed out of the void at the same time. 2 blocked Wang Lin, and the other 2 blocked Kong Nanhua, Yang Qing, and Yu Hongyan. The remaining monk stretched out his big hand and grabbed Zhou Yinsong. Yang Qing looked at the smiling young monk in front of her, and immediately recognized the other party's origin. Monk Baosheng, Golden Cicada. Chapter 824. During the trip to Yingxi, Yang Qing traveled with Xiao Yan and witnessed Xiao Yan killing Liang An. At that time, A young monk suddenly appeared and wanted to help Liang'an, but he was forced to retreat by Yan Mingyue and the people of the Great Zhou dynasty. Later, after reporting the matter in detail to Lin Feng revealed the identity of the young monk. Monk Baosheng, the great sage of the demon clan, Golden Cicada, cultivated the Buddhist Dharma of the Great Lain Temple. He was one of the doppelgangers of the Golden Body realm. At this moment, Monk Baosheng appeared in front of Yangqing with a smile on his face. Buddha's light shot out from the top of his head and condensed into a huge Buddha Dharma body, sitting on a lotus. In front of the lotus, there was a moon wheel and a throne carried by 8 horses. The Buddha held the Rui bead in his right hand and the bell in his left. He was Baosheng Buddha of the 5 Buddhas. The 2 people in front of Wang Lin were calm and expressionless, skinny monk. His skin was dark and he was as thin as a bag of bones. Buddha's light shot out from the top of the skinny monk's head and condensed into a huge ancient Buddha. It was pure gold and glowed with blue light. It sat on a throne carried by 8 elephants, holding a Vajra scepter and a bell. It was the immovable Buddha Dharma body obtained from cultivating the immovable Buddha scripture. The other person was expressionless, but the Buddha's light on his face revealed a sense of perfection. The Buddha's light condensed above his head and formed the Buddha Dharma body. The Dharma body held a pair of Vajras in its right hand and a bell in its left. The throne was carried by a long-horned sangsang bird. These 2 people were the other 2 doppelgangers of Golden Cicada, Immovable Monk and Bukongcheng Monk. The immovable monk blocked Wang Lin's path, while the immovable monk Bukongcheng blocked Wang Lin's path. The elder Hua of the Ice and Fire Elders, who Wang Lin had released from the mysterious sky god sealing flag. Golden Cicada's doppelganger, Bukongcheng Monk, had exquisite Buddhist Dharma power and magical powers. He was not inferior to Monk Dakong, who had fought with Zhu Yi and the others in the Yingxi. Apart from that, there was also an old monk who looked rather old. His face was full of wrinkles and 2 long white eyebrows hung down. Even his body was a little hunched. The Buddha's light above the old monks had also condensed into a huge Buddha. It had a golden body and was emitting red light. It sat on a lotus and a full moon wheel. The throne below it was carried by 8 peacocks. Its right hand held a lotus and its left hand held a bell. It was the uncountable light Rulai Dharmakaya. This was Golden Cicada's 4th Dharma clone, Monk Amitba. Silently he stood in the void, holding the line for immovable, Amitba and Baosheng. With his golden body level 2 cultivation, Monk Baosheng could already fend off Kong Nanhua, Yu Hongyan, and Yangqing on his own. Monk Bukongcheng could also deal with Wang Lin's elder Hua, who was controlled by the Xiantian god sealing flag. Monk Immovable could also stop Wang Lin. With Monk Amitba's support, they could deal with Wang Lin and the others at any time. With Golden Cicada's last Dharma clone, Monk Dari could easily capture Zhou Yuntsong. As Golden Cicada's Mahavirokana Sutra was incomplete, among his 5 clones, only Monk Dari, who was in the middle, was at the golden body level 1. However, it was enough to deal with Zhou Yuntsong, who was only at the mid-stage of the golden elixir. Zhou Yuntsong's divine powers and dharmic powers were powerful, and he fought fiercely. However, the difference in realm between him and the enemy was too great, so he could do nothing. Yangqing's eyes were spitting fire. However, Monk Baosheng had manifested his uncountable light Rulai Dharmakaya and blocked his way. Kong Nanhua and Yu Hongyan could not break through. After capturing Zhou Yuntsong, Golden Cicada's 5 clones broke through the void and escaped. Send my greetings to your master, Mystic Sect Master. This young friend, please follow me to the vast land of infinite wilderness for a few days. Don't miss him. Golden Cicada's voice rang out in the void. He chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice and disappeared. The Buddhist light and Sanskrit sounds also disappeared. Wang Lin, Yu Hongyan, Yangqing, and Kong Nanhua all turned pale. Xianmen Tianzong's direct disciple had been kidnapped. Such a thing was unheard of. It could be said to be the greatest humiliation Xianmen Tianzong had suffered since the founding of the sect. However, Golden Cicada's strength was too strong. Not to mention that the 5 clones were all here, which was equivalent to 4 Buddhist second-tier Golden Body Realm experts and 1 Buddhist first-tier Golden Body Realm expert. Even if everyone on their side joined forces to withstand it, they would also provoke Golden Cicada to make a move. Apart from Lin Feng, No one in the Xian Gate Heavenly Sect could stop that great ancient demon, who had already reached the Dharma-ending realm. Why did Golden Cicada only capture the Tribulation Cloud followers? What is he trying to do? Kong Nanhua took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. Wang Lin's white hair fluttered behind him. His eyes were cold and ferocious, like an active volcano that was about to erupt. Since Yujing Mountain suddenly appeared to test our strength, he must have other plans at the same time. That's why he didn't touch anyone else and only kidnapped Yun Kong. Yu Hongyan's eyes flashed. This demon's cultivation level is too high. Master is in seclusion in the void. Even if we come together, we might be able to deal with his clones, but we can't do anything to him. He must have a plan for kidnapping Yun Kong. Yin Song's life should not be in danger for the time being. This matter is not over. In the future, we must rescue Yin Song and make Golden Cicada pay the price. Wang Lin gripped the flagpole of the Xiantian God Sealing flag so tightly that his knuckles turned slightly white. Now we have an even more pressing situation to face. Master is in seclusion in the void. We don't know when he will come out. Golden Cicada has kidnapped Yin Song, and we are powerless to get him back. Golden Cicada will know that Master is not on the mountain at the moment. If news of this gets out, it will definitely cause other hostile forces to covet our Xianmen Tianzong. Kong Nanhua nodded. Inform Xiao Yan and the others immediately and tell them to make preparations. We should also return to Yujing Mountain as soon as possible. We can only wait for the sect master to come out of seclusion in the future to seek justice for today's grudge. Golden Cicada's plan is unclear. We have to guard against other plans besides kidnapping Yin Kong. We have to guard against him making a second move after this one. We have to guard against his real body. Wang Lin turned to look at Yang Qing, who had been silent all this time. He saw that Yang Qing was gritting her teeth so hard that creaking sounds could be heard from between her lips. Yang Qing suddenly raised her head. The ferocity and brutality in her eyes were comparable to Wang Lin's. The two of them looked at each other, then Yang Qing closed her eyes. Slowly she said, "Senior brother, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. The sect is more important. Let's return to Yujing Mountain." Wang Lin turned to look at Yu Hongyan. Yu Hongyan also nodded. The three of them sighed for a moment. The same thought surfaced in their minds. I wonder how Master is doing now. Lin Feng, who was being missed by his disciples, was currently walking in the world of the spiritual sea. He calmly sensed the mysteries of the spiritual sea, and at the same time, tried to figure out the changes within, trying to find a way to leave the spiritual sea. After sensing that Yujing Mountain had appeared in the void, Lin Feng had been worried. If he did not return for a long time, and Yujing Mountain remained exposed in the void, it would be easy for others to let their imaginations run wild. At that time, all kinds of tests would come one after another. If the fact that he was trapped in the spiritual sea, and was not in the vast thousand domains was exposed, many hostile forces would pounce on him. The Great Zhou dynasty did not have good relations with others. It had almost become the enemy of the entire world. In truth, Xianmen Tianzong's relations with others could only be considered average. It had many allies, but it also had many enemies. This was the inevitable result of the rise of a new force in a short period of time. Although Lin Feng was not afraid of others seizing Yujing Mountain because of the suppression of the spiritual sea, it was hard to say what would happen to other things besides Yujing Mountain. An ordinary man's wealth was his ruin. The ball of light in the yin-yang sea of Yujing Mountain, the white jade pillar that Zhui had obtained from Yingzhou Mountain, the sky-punishing sword that was still some distance away from perfection, Yingzhou Mountain, and the resources in the Xiantian realm. Any one of them was good stuff that would make people salivate. This did not include the secret Penglai Mountain, and the 33 Heavens Fortune Elixir. With so many treasures, it was very likely that it would not be just one force that would plot to seize them. Instead, it would cause a group of wolves to surround and attack together. When enemies joined forces, they might become unstable due to greed. However, if a few leaders could remain clear-headed and agree to divide the spoils beforehand, they would be able to maintain their alliance on the surface. They could even continue to work together and help each other after the event. At that time, even if Lin Feng returned to the vast thousand domains, he would find it difficult to take revenge against the united forces. Huge benefits would split the alliance, but a sufficient amount of danger could make the alliance stronger. I hope little Yan and the rest can handle it. Lin Feng pondered in his heart as he walked in the spiritual sea. At this moment, there seemed to be countless transparent light ribbons intertwining in the spiritual sea. Each light ribbon seemed to contain profound concepts and principles, leaving Lin Feng with endless aftertaste. While analyzing these light ribbons, Lin Feng's understanding of the spiritual sea was also deepening. In addition to his gains in Dharmic Tao, there are thousands of great Taos. Although they all lead to the same destination, they are all different. Why do these light ribbons give me a strange feeling? As if they are vaguely entangled together. Lin Feng found it strange. These light ribbons were said to be ribbons, but they were actually invisible. They were just manifestations of the Tao of heaven and earth, and not real ribbons. However, at this moment, there were clearly some light ribbons vaguely entangled together. Not only did they look like tangible objects, but they also gave off a messy feeling, which was incompatible with the world of the spiritual sea. Lin Feng's heart stirred, and he carefully analyzed these seemingly entangled invisible light ribbons, feeling the concepts within. Then he discovered that the great Taos of heaven and earth that these light ribbons were connected to were somewhat incomplete. Following this strange entanglement, Lin Feng continued forward. Suddenly, he saw that in the originally empty world of the spiritual sea, there was a faint flicker of light. As Lin Feng approached the light, he saw that the light grew larger and larger. In the end, it seemed to occupy the entire world. Lin Feng stopped. Behind him was the still empty world of the spiritual sea, and in front of him was a sea of light. He stood at the boundary between two seemingly different worlds, and felt his heavenly scarlet golden bead tremble violently. Lin Feng did not rush to take out the heavenly scarlet golden bead. Silently, he first sensed the world in front of him that seemed to contain endless light. From this half of the world, he could vaguely see many transparent light ribbons extending out. Lin Feng pondered. The great Taos of heaven and earth that these light ribbons are connected to are all broken. The broken great Taos in the spiritual sea seem to be reflected in these ribbons, and the source seems to be here. Chapter 825. Lin Feng spread out his divine sense, and suddenly found a person at the border of the spiritual sea world, and the sea of light. It was an old man with an elegant appearance and a calm demeanor. He was sitting cross-legged at the border between the two worlds. Lin Feng looked at him and took out a stone talisman. The stone talisman, which had never been special, was now emitting a mysterious aura of spiritual power. Feeling this aura, the old man's body suddenly shook. He opened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng in the distance. When he noticed the stone talisman in Lin Feng's hand, he was surprised. "Are you Tao Master Liubo?" Lin Feng calmly asked. The surprise on the old man's face gradually disappeared, his expression returning to normal, but his eyes flashed. The surprise on his face was even heavier. He looked at Lin Feng, slowly nodding his head. "I am indeed Liubo. How should I address you, sir? I have poor eyesight and can't recognize you." When Tao Master Liubo entered the spiritual sea, Lin Feng had not become famous in the Tianyuan world, so he naturally couldn't recognize him. Lin Feng glanced at Tao Master Liubo and said, "According to Kuei Ox King and Sea Spirit Horse King, Tao Master Liubo was at the original spirit incarnation realm, but now he has successfully refined his spirit to return to the void." He could see through Tao Master Liubo's cultivation realm, but Tao Master Liubo couldn't see through him. He only felt that the purple-clothed young man standing in front of him seemed to have no cultivation at all, and didn't reveal any aura. Lin Feng smiled slightly. "I am the master of the Celestial Gate, Lin Feng. You and I have indeed never met before, but I have come into contact with the Kuei Ox clan and the Sea Spirit Cult clan under you in the past. They asked me to find you on their behalf. This stone talisman was also obtained from the Kuei Ox King." Tao Master Liubo looked at Lin Feng and didn't speak immediately. He was a kind and generous person, so he opened the altar to help the rogue cultivators of East Sea in the past. But it didn't mean that he would easily believe what Lin Feng said. "They are very kind. I accidentally entered this place and then lost contact with the outside world, so I couldn't inform them." Tao Master Liubo said slowly. Over the years, I have never seen anyone else come in except for you. I was thinking that I might die here. It's my honor to meet you. If I'm not wrong, this should be the most mysterious spiritual sea in the 7 seas of Tianyuan. It's a pleasure to cultivate here. However, something unexpected happened when this old man came in, so I am unable to get up to speak with you. This appearance of mine is truly impolite. I hope you don't mind. Lin Feng took a closer look at Tao Master Liubo, who had been sitting cross-legged, and saw many invisible light ribbons extending from his lower body. These invisible ribbons were connected to the sea of light behind him, as if they were extending out from it. Tao Master Liubo was essentially bound here by the light belts manifested by the incomplete Great Tao. Lin Feng asked, "How did this happen?" Tao Master Liubo sighed and took out a stone talisman from his arms. It looked exactly the same as the one in Lin Feng's hand. However, it was full of cracks and obviously could not be used again. I accidentally obtained this pair of stone talismans years ago. Later, under the guidance of the stone talismans, I left Donghai and went west to the Kunlun mountain area. There, I found a staircase made entirely of sunlight that reached to the sky. Tao Master Liubo recalled. Lin Feng nodded slightly. The sunlight staircase that Tao Master Liubo encountered was probably similar to Kong Nanhua's situation. The pair of stone talismans and the staircase to the sky should be the path that the spiritual sea unintentionally manifested, and had nothing to do with Taishu Temple and Yuhuang Heavenly Sea. Just like the Nether Sea that had always been closed, cracks would occasionally appear, and then quickly close again. However, the location of the cracks in the Nether Sea was relatively stable, while the sunlight staircase leading to the spiritual sea was erratic and unpredictable. Tao Master Liubo continued. When I stepped on the staircase, I immediately felt as if the entire vast thousand world was pressing down on me. It was extremely terrifying. At that time, I was blessed and vaguely felt the mysterious relationship between the great Tao of heaven and earth. I separated the pair of stone talismans, and was saved from danger. Then I was sucked into the spiritual sea world. Tao Master Liubo looked down at the light belt connected to him and sighed. Unfortunately, as soon as I entered the spiritual sea world, I fell here and was connected to these light belts, unable to move. Hearing this, Lin Feng nodded noncommittally. He walked past Tao Master Liubo and approached the sea of light step by step to feel the power within. Even though it was bright and resplendent, compared to the formless spirit sea world of the great Tao, Lin Feng could only feel extreme distortion from within this dazzling light. The heavenly scarlet golden bead shook violently, and the zenith heaven whose divine soul was in it was at a loss. Lin Feng comforted Daoyuo but did not rush to take out the celestial scarlet golden bead. He was still carefully feeling the mystery of the sea of light in front of him. Through the unusual movements of the celestial scarlet golden bead, Lin Feng speculated that the sea of light in front of him, which was incompatible with the spiritual sea world, was probably related to the Yuhuang celestial sea in the past. At this moment, the entire spiritual sea world seemed to shake, and the countless invisible light belts gradually emitted a faint light. Endless waves of spiritual qi swept through the entire space, vibrating in an orderly manner like the waves of the sea. And now, these waves of spiritual qi were rushing towards the sea of light where Lin Feng and Tao Master Liubo were. These waves originate from the people of Taishu Temple who also came here. Lightning flashed in Lin Feng's mind, and he quickly understood. Taishu Temple really has a deep understanding of the spiritual sea. Now they want to set things right and clear this sea of light, and the traces left by the Yuhuang celestial sea in the past. The sea of light did not react much in the face of this turbulent spiritual qi tide, nor did it intend to resist. Silently, it just let the spiritual qi tide hit it. Lin Feng's pupils shrank slightly. He only felt that the sea of light seemed to have turned into a bottomless abyss, silently swallowing the incoming spiritual qi tide. It was not like the sea was absorbing all rivers, but as if a bottomless trench had suddenly appeared in the sea. A large amount of seawater poured into it, but could not fill it up. After a few consecutive attacks, the spiritual energy tide gradually subsided. It was not that they were lacking in stamina, but that they seemed to have discovered the mysteries of the sea of light. They temporarily stopped attacking and prepared to slowly figure out the root of the problem, before settling it with a thunderous momentum. Lin Feng and Dao Master Liubo, who were at the junction of the two worlds, were not in danger. The spiritual qi tide did not cause any harm to them, but Lin Feng would not really believe that the tide was harmless. It was just that this time the tide came specifically for the Sea of Light, not for the two of them. The tide receded. Dao Master Liubo frowned and said, "This is the first time I've encountered such a thing. It has never happened before." Lin Feng said lightly, "This should be the doing of the cultivators of Taishu Temple." Dao Master Liubo was slightly stunned. "Is it the Taishu Temple?" Lin Feng's eyes still fell on the vast world of the spiritual sea, and he replied calmly, "If I'm not wrong, Taishu Temple has mastered the way to enter the spiritual sea freely. And the Sea of Light in front of you was created by Yudu, the Saint Emperor of the Demon Clan. The birth of this Sea of Light also made Taishu Temple unable to continue to enter the spiritual sea freely. If you want to enter the spiritual sea, you can only rely on chance such as you. Now the Void Temple has once again found a way to enter the Spirit Sea, but it is not as convenient as before. So they are trying to set things right and change the Spirit Sea, returning it to the way it was before the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea caused chaos." Dao Master Liubo was stunned. He hesitated and looked at Lin Feng. "Then you are." Lin Feng smiled faintly and said no more. He let Dao Master Liubo guess by himself, and his attention was on the world of the spiritual sea, which had calmed down again. It's not easy to drive such a tide just now. Can Taishu Temple control the spiritual sea to such an extent? Lin Feng's expression did not change, but his heart sank slightly. Did they have such an ability before, or did they gain a blessing in disguise after coming in this time because of the changes caused by Yuhuang's celestial sea? While thinking, Lin Feng's pupils suddenly contracted slightly. He vaguely saw a looming light and shadow illusion in the void of the spiritual sea, where the tide had just receded. There were two people in the light and shadow, a man and a woman, one in front and one behind. The woman in the back had picturesque eyebrows, ethereal and beautiful facial features, and held a round mirror in her arms. The outline of the round mirror was blurry. Only the surface of the mirror, which was as clear as autumn water, had endless scenes constantly changing. Flowers bloomed and withered, tides rose and fell. But the most eye-catching thing was the illusory bright moon in the mirror, which was constantly changing between the moon and the moon. From a full moon to a waning moon, and then from a waning moon to a crescent moon. Finally it almost disappeared, but the next moment it reappeared, and gradually became a full moon. Moonlight in the mirror. Lin Feng's eyes slightly narrowed, seeing the woman hugging the round mirror, her gaze landing on the man one step away from her. Deep reverence could be faintly seen in her gaze, as well as a trace of almost undetectable love. Lin Feng's eyes fell on the man. I didn't think of that. This was an extremely handsome man, with perfect facial features and facial contours, as if they were created by heaven and earth, without any flaws. The man looked calm and had a noble temperament, like the lonely moon hanging in the sky, cold and lonely. Between the man's eyebrows, there was a pattern of a full moon, constantly changing, showing the moon's waxing and waning, and the moonlight changing. The most shocking thing was that other than the completely different temperament, the man's appearance was exactly the same as Miao Shihao's. Lin Feng looked at the light and shadow in the spiritual sea, his gaze moving from the man to the woman behind him, then to the round mirror in the woman's arms, and finally to the man. This man and the woman behind him both wore long robes, embroidered with a white cloud, which was the symbol of the Taishu Temple. Although it was only an illusory light and shadow, and didn't really exist, and disappeared in a flash, Lin Feng could still be sure that the cultivation of these two people was extremely high. It's very likely that the Taishu Temple activated the spiritual sea tide this time with the help of something, and that thing came from these two people. Lin Feng withdrew his gaze. Although the situation of the spiritual sea is still unclear, it has made me understand some other things. Chapter 826. Although there were only a few scattered clues, Lin Feng was still able to summarize some things and form a guess in his mind. The scene created by the illusory light and shadow just now proved Lin Feng's guess. Although that man looked exactly like Miao Shihao, Lin Feng naturally had never seen him before. Not to mention Lin Feng, no one in the human cultivation world in the Divine Land had ever seen him in person. However, this person's name was like thunder to the ears of the human cultivation world. The younger generation, or those of a lower level, might not have heard of him. After all, it was too long ago. However, those who were in high positions must have heard of him. In the ancient epoch, one of the four heroes of the Taishu Temple, Yuehua Tian. In the past, the founder of the Taishu Temple, the Taishu Taoist, had many personal disciples. However, the four most well-known and most outstanding disciples were known as the sun, moon, and stars. Later generations also called them the four heroes of the Taishu Temple: Wen Qiang, Yuehua Tian, Yan Xinghe, and Huang Chen. Among the four heroes, Huang Chen joined the sect the earliest and was the oldest. He had been a disciple of the Taishu Taoist since the primeval epoch, and helped the Taishu Taoist establish the Taishu Temple. He had personally experienced the unparalleled battle that split the world from the primeval epoch to the ancient epoch. However, it was a pity that he had fallen the earliest. In the early years of the primeval epoch, the Taishu Taoist and Taihuang had fought together to kill the demon races Juehuang Xianshang. He had died young. The most famous of the four heroes was Wen Qiang. He was known as the #1 expert of the Taishu Temple after the Taishu Taoist. Even though he had fallen later, he had left a strong mark in the history of the entire heaven primal world. It was widely acknowledged that Wen Qiang had the strength to ascend to the throne of the human emperor, but like his master, he also declined the throne. Apart from Wen Qiang, Yan Xinghe was the second temple master of the Taishu Temple after the Taishu Taoist died at the Sea of Death. He made important contributions to the development of the Taishu Temple and the fight between the human race and the demon race. Later, he worked together with the ancient emperor to depose the king of the underworld. However, in that battle, Yan Xinghe had also been heavily injured and had perished together with the king of the underworld. It was worth mentioning that Yan Xinghe was the ancestor of the current temple master of the Taishu Temple, Yan Nanlai. His bloodline descendants were the Taishu Temple, which was also an extremely rare bloodline in the human cultivation world. They were able to continue from the ancient times to the present day, and had outstanding talents in every generation. The most mysterious of the four great disciples was Yuehua Tian. No one in the outside world had ever seen his true appearance. Even within the Taishu Temple, there were very few people who had seen Yuehua Tian's true appearance. To this day, there were even no images of him that had been passed down. As such, the cultivation world of the Divine Land had only heard of Yuehua Tian's name, but did not know what he looked like in person. In the past, Yuehua Tian had followed the Taishu Taoist and Gautama Buddha to the Sea of Death, and had lost contact with them. Now even his life and death had become a mystery. Compared to the mysterious Yuehua Tian himself, the person that the outside world was more familiar with was actually his disciple, Lord Watermoon Li Jingyuan. An image of Li Jingyuan had been passed down, and Lin Feng had seen her appearance before. It was the woman who had appeared just now, holding the round mirror. Li Jingyuan was following behind her, and she had the mark of Yuehua on her forehead. She had a close relationship with the Taishu Temple, and her cultivation was extremely high. With so many characteristics gathered together, Lin Feng could naturally confirm that the man who had the same appearance as Miao Shihao was Yuehua Tian, one of the four great heroes of the ancient times. Looking at his face, which had a completely different temperament but was no different from Miao Shihao's, and then looking at Li Jingyuan who was standing behind him holding the mirror, the messy clues in Lin Feng's mind suddenly became clear. Lin Feng thought to himself, there is still too little information about the Taishu Temple. Although Yuehua Tian's life and death are unknown, at least there is definite news that he went to the Sea of Death with the Taishu Taoist. But as for Li Jingyuan, her whereabouts are unknown. She was quite famous in the ancient times, but in the end, she gradually disappeared. There is no news of her, and no one knows how she died. At that time, Li Jingyuan's cultivation was already at the 3rd level of the primordial soul realm. Even if she died, she would not have died without a trace. I'm afraid that even the people of the Taishu Temple now do not know much about this secret. There should only be a few people who know the truth. Besides them, only Shihao knows. Lin Feng shook his head slightly and withdrew his thoughts. His gaze moved between the world of the spiritual sea and the sea of light beside him. In this way, it completely proves the fact that the Void Temple has already deeply researched the spirit sea before. Lin Feng thought to himself. Both Yue Huatian and Li Jingyuan entered the spiritual sea, so they left behind treasures that can affect this place. Now the cultivators of the Taishu Temple use them to drive the tide of the spiritual sea. Lin Feng continued to observe the sea of light in front of him while thinking. After a while he took out the Tianshan golden bead. Suddenly, a large amount of purple light shone from the golden bead. Streams of light rushed out of the bead and extended toward the sea of light. As soon as these streams of light came into contact with the sea of light, a huge suction force suddenly came from the sea of light, trying to suck the Tianshan golden bead in. Lin Feng raised his palm and gently chopped in the air. The heavenly barrier spell was launched to isolate the huge suction force of the sea of light. The Tianshan golden bead still stayed in Lin Feng's palm. Seeing this, Dao Master Lu Bo revealed a look of surprise again. Lin Feng turned to look at him and asked calmly, "Your Excellency, there must be something else that is attracted by the sea of light, right?" Dao Master Liubo's eyes flickered and he sighed. "The master of the celestial sect, right? Your Excellency, you really have a sharp eye. That's why I'm bound by the sea of light and can't even move." He looked at Lin Feng and said, "To tell you the truth, other than that pair of stone talismans, I also accidentally obtained a small seal platform. Under the dual guidance of the seal platform and the stone talisman, only then was I able to find that sunlight staircase that leads to the spirit sea. I was careless and the seal platform was sucked away by the sea of light in front of me. In a hurry, I released my primordial spirit incarnation to wrap the seal platform, but I was also bound by the sea of light. It was only by a narrow escape that I could not get out, so I could only sit here with my legs crossed. There are thousands of great ways and endless spiritual chi in the spiritual sea. I broke through the bottleneck here, and successfully refined my spirit to return to the void. My Dharma power and divine sense increased, so I was able to untie the shackles on my upper body, but my lower body is still bound." Lin Feng nodded and did not say anything else. He directly performed the heavenly realm barrier again. He straightened his palm like a saber, and chopped at the light belt that bound Dao Master Liubo. Dao Master Liubo's body shook, and he immediately felt that the light band that bound him was constantly disintegrating. He was surprised and delighted. He immediately showed his Dharma body of void return, which was a vast and boundless ocean. He worked together with Lin Feng to break free from the light band. When Dao Master Liubo finally got out of the sea of light, he felt as if a lifetime had passed. He immediately thanked Lin Feng. "Thanks to the master of the celestial sect, I was able to get out of trouble. Thank you very much." Lin Feng smiled slightly. "You're welcome, fellow Taoist Liubo. I promised Kuei Nyo King and Sea Spirit Chariot King that if I can find you in the spiritual sea, I'll see if you're trapped. If you're willing to stay in the spiritual sea, just send a message back. If you're trapped, I'll help you." Dao Master Liubo shook his sleeve and a small purple gold seal flew out and appeared in front of Lin Feng. When he saw that Lin Feng's celestial centipede golden bead was also attracted by the sea of light, he knew that Lin Feng would most likely need his small purple gold seal. Before Lin Feng said anything, Dao Master Liubo had already offered the seal. On the one hand, he owed Lin Feng a favor. On the other hand, he already knew that Lin Feng's divine sense and Dharma power were above his. Even if he directly snatched it, he wouldn't be able to keep it. Seeing that Dao Master Liubo took the initiative to hand over the seal, Lin Feng nodded slightly. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Dao Master Liubo shook his head and said, "What are you talking about, Sect Master Lin? It's been proven that this treasure can't play any role in my hands. Sect Master Lin, you're powerful, so maybe you can use it." Lin Feng took the small purple gold seal and saw a half-human, half-demon statue carved on the upper part of the seal, which looked like a Yudu beast. Sure enough, Lin Feng's heart stirred slightly, and he asked Dao Master Liubo, "Fellow Taoist, did you also get the seal from the East Sea?" Dao Master Liubo nodded. "That's right, in the northern part of the East Sea, near the Luofu Immortal Island." Lin Feng didn't say anything, and the zenith heaven in the celestial centipede golden bead also fell into silence. That was the place where he used to live. After the combination of the light and shadow of Yuhuang on Penglai Immortal Mountain, as well as the years of cultivation, although the zenith heaven still didn't have a thorough understanding of its own situation, it gradually figured out some things. This small seal with the Yudu statue carved on it was very likely to be related to him. Lin Feng immediately shot out several streams of mana into the seal platform, refining the seal platform. He discovered that there weren't too many valuable things inside, only a few rather outstanding formations. One of the formations faintly resonated with the sea of light in front of him, and the other formation was connected to the celestial centipede golden bead, as well as the zenith heaven's divine soul in the celestial centipede golden bead. After carefully figuring out the concept of the second formation, it played a supporting role, which was of great help to the zenith heaven and the celestial centipede golden bead. Lin Feng raised the celestial centipede golden bead and the purple gold seal together, which flashed dazzlingly in the void. The purple gold seal directly integrated into the celestial centipede golden bead, and the size of the celestial centipede golden bead increased again. A terrifying purple divine light surged out of the celestial centipede golden bead, and the dazzling divine markings shook the heavens. Even the thousands of great Tao in the spirit sea reacted and shook together. The tide of spiritual qi that had originally calmed down showed signs of rising again, but this time, it was triggered by the celestial centipede golden bead. The sea of light in front of Lin Feng also changed. In the pure and bright sea of light, it suddenly shook violently, as if waves were rising and falling. An image gradually took shape and appeared in front of Lin Feng and Tao Master Liubo. However, when they saw this image, Lin Feng and Tao Master Liubo were momentarily dumbfounded. Fuck. These two words rolled in Lin Feng's mouth for a long time, and he almost cursed out loud. Chapter 8:27. The image presented in front of Lin Feng and Tao Master Liubo was a scene that would shock even primordial spirit cultivators. In the vast flow of heaven and earth light, a huge alien space appeared. The shape of this space was very strange. It was like a flat surface that covered the sky and the earth. It was connected to the vast thousand world everywhere, like a membrane attached to the surface of the vast thousand world. But if one looked carefully, they would feel that this alien space seemed to be just an independent point, like a speck of dust. The changes were unpredictable, but it was also very mysterious. When Lin Feng and Tao Master Liubo saw it, they could both feel that this strange alien space was the spirit sea where they were at the moment. At this moment, the huge flat surface of the spirit sea in the light and shadow suddenly twisted violently, like a piece of paper that was wrinkled by someone. The image changed, and the scene presented in the light and shadow suddenly turned into a silent and invisible vast world inside the spirit sea. But at this time, in the world of the spirit sea, an unprecedented tide of the spirit sea broke out, causing the originally calm spirit sea to be turbulent like a tsunami. In the spirit sea, a figure stood there, with limbs and facial features very similar to a human, but complex purple light patterns appeared on the surface of his body, as if engraved on his body. The hair on his head was completely silver, limited to the width of a fist around the spine, from the back of the head all the way to the coccyx. A huge hair tail floated behind him silently, and there was a long horn on both sides of the head and the middle of the forehead. The three long horns were densely covered with talismans. Purple light spread out, stirring up the spirit sea where thousands of great waves gathered. An incomparably terrifying power spread out, as if the supreme ruler of heaven and earth had descended. Its human-like face was filled with arrogance and tyranny, its might overlooking the world. The Saint Emperor of the Demon Clan, the master of the Yudu clan, Heavenly Sea Yudu. Lin Feng's pupils contracted slightly. He could clearly see that under the illumination of the Yuhuang Celestial Sea's Yudu Hell Flower, there were actually some formless bands of light that were manifested by the great Tao that were disintegrating like sand sculptures in water. Then Yuhuang Heavenly Sea opened its mouth and made a gesture towards the endless void of the spirit sea. Bite. The figure glowing with purple light seemed to become incomparably massive. It opened its mouth and bit down into the void. Countless rays of purple light flashed, and the formless world seemed to be bitten by it, constantly tearing at it. When Lin Feng and Dao Master Liubo looked at the spirit sea from the outside, the entire spirit sea seemed to be distorted and wrinkled like a piece of paper. The source was actually here. The spiritual sea completely lit up. Invisible ribbons of light crisscrossed and vibrated together. The runes of the great Tao of the heavens appeared, and the spiritual energy in the spiritual sea that was like the sky and the sea all went berserk. That terrifying power made even Lin Feng feel apprehensive. It was a terrifying power that could kill primordial soul and path integration powerhouses at will in an instant. As the great Tao of heaven, which had manifested as an invisible belt of light, shattered, a great terror that could destroy heaven and earth descended. It was above the Dharma-ending tribulation, the Deva's 5 decays. Not only was everything in the world declining and collapsing, but it seemed like the entire great thousand worlds were heading towards the end of the road. But what was even more shocking was the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea. Even in the face of such a terrifying suppression of the spiritual sea world, the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea's Yuda netherlight surged wildly, and the purple light kept shattering. But it still did not let go. Not only did it not let go, but it also continued to exert force. A tearing sound that was not loud rang in the hearts of Lin Feng and Dao Master Liubo who were watching the video, making them feel extremely uncomfortable, as if this tearing sound alone could damage their primordial spirits. Lin Feng was in good condition. He circulated his Dharma power and calmed his mind, while Dao Master Liubo let out a muffled groan, and directly manifested his Dharma body of void return to resist. This made both of them secretly shocked. They only watched the virtual video, but they already had such a feeling. One could imagine what kind of earth-shattering scene it was at that time. In the light and shadow, the vast and mysterious spiritual sea with thousands of great Tao was suddenly bitten open by the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea. Countless broken great Tao kept twisting, bursting out dazzling pure but chaotic and desolate light, full of contradictions, and finally turned into a sea of light. Because of the birth of the sea of light, the entire spiritual sea world was constantly in turmoil. The power of the spiritual sea became even more tyrannical, directly shaking the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea out of the space of the spiritual sea. Although he was finally expelled, Yuhuang Heavenly Sea's face was full of a wanton and wild smile. Although he was smiling, revealing his cold and sharp teeth, he clenched his teeth so tightly that endless light could be vaguely seen swaying between his teeth. Both Lin Feng and Dao Master Liubo stared at this scene blankly, marveling at Yuhuang Heavenly Sea's lawlessness and unparalleled divine sense. Tsk, this guy is really fierce. He actually bit off a corner of the spiritual sea. Lin Feng also couldn't come back to his senses for a while. He shook his head slightly and said, "No wonder this guy is known as the strongest expert of this era. His divine sense and Dharma power are already amazing enough, and he has swallowed a corner of the spiritual sea. When he recovers from the injuries suppressed by the spiritual sea, his strength will be even higher than what is seen in the video." Dao Master Liubo was even more dumbfounded. This demon is really too fierce. Lin Feng let out a long breath, turned his head to look at the spiritual sea world behind him, and then looked at the sea of light in front of him. "I see. This sea of light in front of me is actually the gap of the spiritual sea bitten out by Yudu. After all, the spiritual sea is mysterious and self-balanced. Although there is such a damage, it has not completely collapsed and caused irreparable damage. These years, the spiritual sea has also been self-repairing. Now that the people of Taishu Temple have come in, they will definitely greatly speed up the recovery of the spiritual sea. With this process, I think their control over the spiritual sea will be further deepened. In this case, the tide just now is really part of the recovery." After thinking for a while, Lin Feng's eyes gradually became serious. He turned his head to look at the invisible great ways in the spiritual sea space, and his pupils gradually contracted. Cultivating here, the spiritual chi is like the sea, and anyone can get twice the result with half the effort. But the most beneficial thing is probably for the cultivators at the peak of the Void Return realm, who will have a higher chance of breaking through to the Tao integration realm. It is also very beneficial for comprehending and creating Taoist techniques. Lin Feng stood with his hands behind his back, and a Tai Chi pattern appeared on his forehead, constantly rotating as he silently thought about his heavenly Tao Sutra. In the sea of light in front of him, the image just now gradually disappeared, but then it resonated with the heavenly scarlet golden bead, and the Daoyuo divine soul in it. A large number of runes and incantations surged into the heavenly scarlet golden bead, and appeared in front of Lin Feng, and the Daoyuo divine soul. Among them were the many essences left behind by Yuhuang celestial sea, and it was his own understanding and understanding of the principles of all things in the world during the process of cultivation. Yuhuang celestial sea swallowed a corner of the spiritual sea, but in the process of fighting against the spiritual sea, it also imprinted many of its own Taoist techniques' essence changes. A large amount of light spread out, as if the sea of light was extending, wrapping around Lin Feng and the heavenly scarlet golden bead, turning it into a huge ball of light. It was just that half of this ball of light was in the sea of light, while the other half remained in the space of the spiritual sea. Lin Feng's left and right eyes seemed to suddenly change. In one eye was the creation of all things, life and death, and the 8 trigrams surged, wanting to reopen the world. In the other eye was boundless purple light, as if it controlled the Taoist of all things, and was the ruler of the universe. As expected, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the ground, and there was a flash of light in front of him. Brontosaurus's clone revealed his true form, turning into a purple-scaled heavenly dragon that was thousands of feet long. One human, one demon, both resided in the void, and the size of their bodies was somewhat disproportionate. Right now, the eyes of Lin Feng's main body were filled with the creation of all things, the creation of the heavenly Tao, and the Tai Chi pattern on his forehead constantly rotated. Meanwhile, the eyes of Brontosaurus's clone flickered with boundless purple light, as if he was the ruler of the world, looking down on all things indifferently. The two faced each other, faintly forming a wonderful balance, as if they were the two extremes of the world. Tao Master Liubo couldn't see everything inside the light ball, but he could see the complete great Tao in the spiritual sea space. At this moment, they had also become invisible light ribbons, connected to the surface of the light ball, and he could vaguely feel an extremely mysterious aura emanating from the light ball. In the light ball, Lin Feng's state of mind was unprecedentedly calm, silently deducing the last step of his Yin and Yang chapter of the Tao Te Ching. Before this, Lin Feng had deduced all kinds of principles and concepts, including Yin and Yang, life and death, light and darkness, eternity and instant, heaven and earth, true and false, extreme and extreme, creation and destruction. But he was still not done. This step was to understand the world. There was an essential difference between human Taoism and demon Taoism. Human Taoism was to go against the heaven, to seek to create their own world, to steal the power of the sun and moon, and finally to be free and unfettered. Demon Taoism was to follow the heaven, to seek to integrate with heaven and earth, to draw heaven and earth into their own bodies, and finally to replace heaven and earth. They were heaven and heaven and earth were them. Before the formation of primordial spirit and immortal demon soul, human and demon cultivation would follow their own paths to lay the foundation for the future. Human clan cultivators could only reach the first level of primordial spirit realm, the incarnation realm. Only then could they integrate with heaven and earth, and become one with heaven and earth. However, being one with heaven and earth was not the real pursuit, but to transcend and jump out of the world. Therefore, after that, they would refine their spirit and return to the void, forming a world of their own, no longer attached to the original world of creation, and taking the first step of true independence. Then, the primordial spirit unification was to observe the great Tao of heaven and earth and integrate with their own Tao, making the world of their own a step further. As for the great sage of the demon clan, they would form the immortal demon soul. Like the human primordial spirit incarnation, they would integrate with heaven and earth. As long as heaven and earth were not destroyed, they would not perish. However, the demon clan would not abandon their true form. Instead, while forming the immortal demon soul, their true form would become more closely integrated with heaven and earth. At the second level of the immortal demon soul, they would form the primordial true spirit, which was completely different from the human clan cultivators. This primordial true spirit was the true spirit of this boundless universe. By rooting it into their demon soul and bloodline, it would form the true spirit divine mark and become more closely integrated with heaven and earth. Although it was a tangible body, it was like an invisible extension of heaven and earth. At the third level of the immortal demon soul, the star-soul unification, one would integrate one's demon soul with the stars of heaven and earth, becoming inseparable from heaven and earth. After the primordial spirit unification of the human clan, and the star-soul unification of the demon clan, although they were different paths to the same goal, and both had to start challenging the three tribulations of creation, the paths they took were still very different. These two cultivation methods were opposing yet unified existences. They represented the two different understandings of the living beings of the heaven primal world. When Lin Feng derived the Yin-Yang chapter of the Heavenly Tao scripture, he had already refined a lot of the other two opposing principles. However, it was still not perfect. Previously, when Lin Feng browsed through the Buddhist teachings, he was reminded. Therefore, he abandoned the Iron Tree clone and reforged the Brontosaurus clone. Through various harvests, he studied the peak Heavenly Tao demon scripture of the demon clan, using it as a source of inspiration. The remnant experience of the Tao of the Yuhuang Heaven Sea in the Sea of Light was the final supplement, making up for the last step. As expected, this is the opportunity for me to refine my spirit and return to the void. Lin Feng closed his eyes. In this world of the spirit sea, where the great Tao crisscrossed, he cleansed and sorted out his Tao, completely establishing the third chapter of the Heavenly Tao scripture, the Yin-Yang chapter. Chapter 828. While Wang Lin and the others were still in the southern wasteland, in the southern region of Kunlun Mountain, on Beyond Heaven Mountain, all other places were quiet and peaceful. Only the main hall at the top of the mountain had a strange atmosphere. A huge spell formation was suddenly activated and covered the main hall, making it impossible to enter or leave the main hall. In the main hall in front of the main hall, a group of Beyond Heaven Mountain disciples had gathered and were listening to the elder preaching. However, the elder who was preaching seemed to be in a daze. Meanwhile, in the rear hall that was connected to the main hall, a long and intense battle was currently taking place. The main hall and the rear hall were also separated by a formation, preventing any sound from leaking out and alerting the people in the main hall. Within the rear hall, the formation was activated, and it transformed into an expanse of black hole void. The forces of both sides were already fighting fiercely within the void, and they were locked in battle. One of them was about 40 or 50 years old. He had 3 strands of black beard and a square, serious face. He was the sect master of Beyond Heaven Mountain, Wu Yunliang. Another middle-aged man was fighting with him. He was Li Baitao, the second in Wu Yunliang's generation. His expression was solemn, but there was a trace of determination in it. Besides Wu Yunliang and Li Baitao, there were 2 other elders who were also fighting. These 2 elders were both in the late Yuanying stage. They were the only 2 remaining elders of the previous generation of Beyond Heaven Mountain. Normally, they would seize the time to cultivate in seclusion, hoping to reach the primordial soul stage in their lifetime. These 2 elders had long stopped caring about the matters of the sect. This time, not only did they come out of seclusion together, but they also started a fierce battle. Besides them, the other higher-ups of Beyond Heaven Mountain were also gathered here. Everyone was standing in a circle with their opponents. The atmosphere in the main hall was extremely oppressive. After fighting for a long time, Wu Yunliang forced Li Baitao to retreat with his sword. He asked in a deep voice, "Junior brother Li, do you really want to rebel against Beyond Heaven Mountain?" Li Baitao's expression was calm and his gaze was firm. "It's not that I want to rebel against Beyond Heaven Mountain. It's just that senior brother sect leader is hesitant. It will definitely bring disaster to Beyond Heaven Mountain." Many years ago, in order to deal with the pressure brought by the Great Qin dynasty, our Beyond Heaven Mountain had already drawn closer to Shu Mountain. All along we have been vassals of Shu Mountain. Back then we pretended to betray Shu Mountain and join Xianmen Tianzong, but it was also under the orders of Shu Mountain. At that time, sect leader senior brother, you had also made up your mind. Wu Yunliang waved his hand, and his people retreated. They formed a formation and supported each other. He stared at Li Baitao and said, "What you did today was indeed instigated by the Shushan sword sect. What do you guys want to do?" Li Baitao also did not continue to press forward. He and his men stood in position, facing Wu Yunliang and the others. Nothing much. A few days ago, there was a sudden change in Xianmen Tianzong. Yujing Mountain, which has always been hidden in the void, suddenly appeared in the vast thousand domains. A powerful expert from the Shushan sword sect was watching from afar. He felt that the spiritual energy of the fairy mountain was different from before. The master of the Xianmen sect did not seem to be on the mountain. Therefore, the Mount Shu sword sect wants to test the waters of the celestial sect of wonders and see what the situation is. Wu Yunliang stared at him and asked, "What did you do?" Slowly Li Baitao said, "Nothing much. When I surrounded you guys here, I also sent a message to Xianmen Tianzong. I said that there is a rebellion in Beyond Heaven Mountain. We can't quell it, so we asked Xianmen Tianzong for help." As the instigator of the rebellion, Li Baitao naturally was not crazy. While blocking the communication between Wu Yunliang and the others, he also sent a message to Xianmen Tianzong. "You guys want to surround us and ambush the Xianmen Tianzong disciples?" Wu Yunliang immediately understood. "Your people are all here. So the people from Shushan have already arrived?" Li Baitao sighed and did not speak. In fact, how could he not be afraid? At the moment, the Xianmen Tianzong they were plotting against was too huge compared to Beyond Heaven Mountain. A single hair of the Xianmen Tianzong was thicker than their waists. During the trip to the Yinghai Sea, they had obtained the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain alone, as well as a Creation Dharma treasure embryo. They had even obtained the Great Zhou Dynasty's Fengzhang Immortal Mountain. At this moment, the Mystic Gate Heavenly Sect was even more powerful than before. If not for the sudden change in Xianmen Tianzong, even Li Baitao, who was the most firm supporter of Shushan sect in Beyond Heaven Mountain, would not dare to act rashly. At the same time, if Xianmen Tianzong had not changed, Shushan sword sect would not have tried to test them. Even now, Beyond Heaven Mountain did not have much courage to provoke Xianmen Tianzong. However, they could not afford to offend the Shushan sword sect on the other side, and they had already come to their door. If they and the others went back on their word and really wanted to side with Xianmen Tianzong, the entire Beyond Heaven Mountain would immediately be destroyed. The plan they were carrying out at the moment was to use this internal rebellion to ask for help from Xianmen Tianzong. Then, with the help of the hidden cultivators of Shushan sword sect, they would detain Xianmen Tianzong's people to test Xianmen Tianzong's reaction. Li Baitao looked at the silent crowd and said slowly, "Whether it's Xianmen Tianzong or Shushan sword sect, we can't resist them. If it's possible, I don't want the Patriarch's Foundation to be involved in such a huge whirlpool and be in danger of overturning at any time." However, under the instruction of Shushan, we deliberately turned away from Shushan and turned to rely on Xianmen Tianzong. Although our Beyond Heaven Mountain and Shushan are not inseparable from each other, if the conditions permit, we can also pretend to be courteous to Shushan. But this time, Shushan has really come to our door. If we don't agree, we will immediately be destroyed. Even if Xianmen Tianzong retaliates against Shushan later, they can only get back their own face. Our Beyond Heaven Mountain can't recover. This time, the whole Divine Land is staring at Xianmen Tianzong, who has suddenly moved. Shushan is also determined to take action. The situation is no longer up to us to continue to waver. We must make a thorough choice. He looked at Wu Yunliang and said in a deep voice, "Senior brother sect leader, we have already made the decision that year. After so many years of preparation, we can't waver in the face of battle. Over the years, I can faintly feel that you are wavering. So today, I have to offend you." Someone from Wu Yunliang's faction said in a deep voice, "Whether Xianmen Tianzong will change or not is still unknown. Now, Shushan sword sect is like the sun in the West Mountain, and Xianmen Tianzong is like the sun in the sky. We are still hanging on the tree of Shushan sword sect. Isn't it a little unwise?" Li Baitao shook his head. "The rise of Xianmen Tianzong is special. At first, Taishu Temple wanted to support it as a new chess piece to replace Big Lane Temple to balance Shushan sword sect. So there was a chance for Xianmen Tianzong to develop and grow. But in the end, Xianmen Tianzong couldn't get rid of it. Instead, it joined forces with Great Qin Dynasty and Great Zhou Dynasty to fight against Taishu Temple. Now, Taishu Temple's attitude towards Xianmen Tianzong has naturally changed. In the Battle of Shilling City, although the master of Xianmen Tianzong defeated Xian Longsheng, Shushan Sword Sect's potential is far from bottoming out. If there is an all-out war, I'm afraid that Shushan Sword Sect has a higher chance of winning. In addition to the Immortal Heaven Sword, Shushan Sword Sect also has 2 Grand Elders. Their cultivation is probably not inferior to the master of Xianmen Tianzong. After the Battle of Shilling City, Xian Longsheng cultivated in seclusion, and also made a breakthrough. Because of the many experts cultivating in seclusion, Shushan Sword Sect has been much more low-key these years. But after hiding their strength and biding their time, there will be an even more terrifying outbreak. The cultivator on the other side said in a deep voice, "Senior Brother Li, you just said that relying on Xianmen Tianzong will not be able to bear the anger of Shushan Sword Sect. Even if Xianmen Tianzong will go to all-out war with Shushan Sword Sect for the sake of its reputation, our Beyond Heaven mountain is destroyed. The mountain can be rebuilt, but the dead can't come back to life. This principle is the same in reverse," Li Baitao said. "If this test can find out the truth about Xianmen Tianzong, and prove that the master of Xianmen Tianzong is indeed missing, then I'm afraid it will not be Shushan alone dealing with Xianmen Tianzong. Xianmen Tianzong has been acting overbearingly all these years, so he will definitely be attacked by others. At that time, even if the master of Xianmen Tianzong reappears and wants to take revenge, he will be surrounded by enemies and won't have time to find trouble with Beyond Heaven Mountain. With his current status, it is impossible for him to put down his status and come to us. He can only send his disciples. But after this disaster, I'm afraid there will not be many people left in Xianmen Tianzong. In particular, if they lose Yujing Mountain, the magic treasure of creation embryo, and the Xiantian realm. Even if Xianmen Tianzong still has the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain in the Ying Sea, their vitality will be greatly damaged. On the other hand, his opponents will become much stronger because of this. Slowly, the elder of the previous generation on Wu Yunliang's side said, "In the past, didn't the master of the mysterious gate establish Xianmen Tianzong from nothing? How do you know he won't make a comeback one day?" Li Baitao nodded at the old man. "Martial uncle, please understand. Before we had the support of Taishu Temple, but after the Battle of West Hill City, everyone in Taishu Temple must have seen clearly that the master of Xianmen Tianzong has a big plan. This time, Xianmen Tianzong has suffered a disaster. If they want to rise again, it will be much more difficult than before. Everyone's eyes will be fixed on him, and they will never give him a chance to make a comeback. After the Mount Shu Sword Sect and other forces have severely injured and suppressed Xianmen Tianzong, their own strength will greatly increase. If they unite again, even if the master of Xianmen Tianzong comes back to the world, it will only be difficult." Li Baitao paused for a moment. Just like what junior brother Qi said, people can't come back to life after they die, and mountains can be rebuilt after they are destroyed. If we really find out that Xianmen Tianzong is empty, the forces will repeat what happened in the past and form the exterminating Xian Alliance. Our Beyond Sky Mountain will naturally not participate. Instead, we will prepare in advance and move away from Beyond Sky Mountain. The Mount Shu Sword Sect has already agreed for us to temporarily live in Mount Shu. At that time, even if the master of Xianmen Tianzong returns to the mortal world, unless he destroys Mount Shu first, he will not be able to do anything to us. But at that time, he will first have to deal with the follow-up measures of the exterminating Xian Alliance. At this point, Li Baitao's voice became slightly lower. Of course, things in the world can't always go according to one's wishes. Since it is a test, it may succeed but it may also fail. If the result of this test is that the master of Xianmen Tianzong is safe, I'm afraid the exterminating Xian Alliance will not come to fruition. At that time, regardless of what happens to Mount Shu, our Beyond Sky Mountain will immediately suffer the wrath of Xianmen Tianzong. If that is the case, everyone will treat it as if I have really rebelled, capture me, and hand me over to Xianmen Tianzong." Li Baitao looked up to the sky and sighed. No matter what, Mount Shu is already right in front of us. This time, if we don't cooperate, our Beyond Sky Mountain will immediately be in danger of being destroyed. It is all a test of Xianmen Tianzong. Either we detain the people of Xianmen Tianzong, or Mount Shu will destroy our Beyond Sky Mountain, a force that is openly dependent on Xianmen Tianzong. Everyone, we have no choice. Before his voice died away, Li Baitao suddenly received a sound transmission using supernatural power. The people of Xianmen Tianzong have arrived. Chapter 829. When Li Baitao heard the voice transmission, he took a deep breath and looked around. Everyone, once the bow is shot, there is no turning back. This is something that has been decided long ago, and we cannot waver in the face of battle. Otherwise, we will only suffer. His people all nodded in agreement with Li Baitao's words. Senior brother sect leader, the powerful cultivators of Mount Shu Sword Sect are on the mountain now. We have no choice. Li Baitao's gaze finally fell on Wu Yunliang. Wu Yunliang stroked his long beard and looked at Li Baitao. Slowly he nodded. That's right. We've already agreed on this. We've been preparing for this moment for so many years. We can't let all our efforts go to waste. Li Baitao heaved a sigh of relief. Based on his understanding of Wu Yunliang, he was a decisive person. However, he had a strong sense of responsibility towards Beyond Sky Mountain. Now that he had pointed out everyone's current situation, even if Wu Yunliang couldn't completely side with Mount Shu Sword Sect, he shouldn't obstruct them. However, Li Baitao felt that something was wrong when he heard Wu Yunliang's words, which made his heart skip a beat. At this moment, a crack appeared in the void above Beyond Sky Mountain. Black Dragon Jieyu, Jade Dragon Bai Guang, Kuei Niu King, and King Fei Lian appeared. On top of Black Dragon Jieyu's head stood a tall, skinny, dark-skinned, purple-clothed young man. He was the sixth disciple of Lin Feng, Li Yuanfang. After the trip to Yingxi, 2 years had passed in the boundless world. He had cultivated day and night, and also in the mysterious Skytime Cave. He had already successfully passed the Yin Fire Tribulation, and advanced to the middle stage of Golden Elixir. Li Yuanfang saw the spirit formation on the top of the mountain and nodded. No wonder I couldn't contact sect leader Wu. Sure enough, the sound transmission was blocked. As he was thinking, a shocking sword chi came from Beyond Sky Mountain. It turned into heavy clouds that were extremely yin and soft, surrounding Li Yuanfang and the others. Mount Shu's Tine Sword? Li Yuanfang, Jieyu and the others all focused their gazes. Then they saw that other than the gentle Tine Sword Wei, there were also many condensed, fierce, and domineering sword lights crisscrossing between heaven and earth, forming a killing formation with the Tine Sword. It was the fiercest and most tyrannical of the 6 meridian swords of Mount Shu, the Xiaoshang Sword. 2 figures flew out from beyond Heaven Mountain. The one in front was a middle-aged man dressed in embroidered robes. He had a hooked nose and a pair of sharp eyes. He was staring at Li Yuanfang and the others with eyes filled with hatred. It was Ning Lang, the honorable swordsman of Duanyue of Mount Shu's Xiaoshang Sword faction. During the sword trials of Tianjia Peak, Lin Feng's great son Yan Emperor Dharmakaya had shattered his primordial spirit incarnation with a single punch. If not for honorable swordsman Guan Chong, who was at the side, saving him in time, he would have been killed by that punch. All these years, Ning Lang had been living in seclusion in Mount Shu, recuperating from his injuries. Even so, he had not completely recovered his vitality. What made him feel even more despair was that Lin Feng's punch had injured the foundation of his primordial spirit. Even if he could recuperate from his injuries, he would not have any hope of returning to the void in this lifetime without a great opportunity. This made Ning Lang hate Lin Feng to the bone. At the same time, a seed of fear was planted in his heart. This seed took root and germinated, gradually turning into an inner demon that took root in Ning Lang's heart. Not only was he unable to move forward, but as a Xiaoshang sword cultivator who was supposed to be ferocious and domineering, his cultivation even regressed. Therefore, Ning Lang's hatred for Xianmen Tianzong had already reached its peak. However, he was also afraid of Lin Feng. Although he was not sure of Lin Feng's exact situation, the hatred in his heart drove Ning Lang to take the initiative to ask for permission to come to Heaven's Beyond Mountain, when Xianmen Tianzong made a slight move. The other person was a woman with an ice-cold expression. She looked ordinary, but her killing intent was overwhelming. She was also a great sword cultivator at the first tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm. Sword chi lingered around her like clouds and mist. Clearly, she cultivated the Tai Yin sword of Mount Shu's 6 Meridians sword. The female sword cultivator's Tai Yin sword unfolded, and dense clouds and mist shrouded Li Yuanfang and the rest. Not only did it cut off their path of retreat, but it also isolated them from the outside world at the same time. Ning Lang stared at Li Yuanfang and the rest and said in a hoarse voice, "Today, none of you can leave." Other than Jieyu, who was already in the advanced Demon King stage, White Light had gained a lot from the trip to Yingxi. She was already very talented, and after a long period of seclusion after returning to the mountain, she finally achieved the Dharma Idol and advanced to the advanced Demon King stage. Kuei Nyo King was still in the intermediate Demon King stage, but he had already reached the peak of the intermediate Demon King stage. He was only a step away from the advanced Demon King stage. If not for the sudden change at Yujing Mountain, he would have also started seclusion to break through the bottleneck. As for King Philian of the Wind God sect, he had been cultivating wholeheartedly on the mountain all these years. Not long ago, he had successfully advanced to the intermediate Demon King stage. With such a lineup, coupled with Lin Feng's personal disciple, Li Yuanfang, who was in the intermediate Golden Elixir period, but whose actual combat power could not be measured by the cultivators in the Golden Elixir period, it was indeed enough to quell the internal strife at Heaven's Beyond Mountain. However, it was a different matter when facing 2 primordial spirit transformation realm sword cultivators from Mount Shu. If there was only one, they could at least fight back with everyone's combined strength. However, facing 2 at the same time, they would be directly crushed. However, Ning Lang and Jieyu quickly realized that something was wrong. The reactions of Li Yuanfang, Jieyu, and the others in front of them were really too dull. An ominous premonition arose in their hearts. In the next moment, the clouds and mist created by the female sword cultivator's Tai Yin sword were torn apart by the raging flames. A domineering and ferocious tiger that was completely formed by bluish-purple flames, as big as a mountain, stared at them condescendingly with a pair of eyes that were filled with spirituality, as if they were real life. It made the 2 sword cultivators' hearts tremble. Nether Evil Emperor. This kind of cultivation. Both of their hearts sank at the same time. The eldest disciple of the Taoist sex master, Xiaoyan. A valiant young man dressed in purple clothes with a black robe on the outside appeared in the void. He had an imposing manner, and his eyes were cold. A faint sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Yo, Mount Shu sword cultivator, long time no see." A black iron token floated above his head. The Nether Evil Emperor that filled the sky turned into a bluish-purple sea of flames, causing the sky within a radius of 1,000 miles to burn. In the sea of flames, a tall figure was faintly discernible. It had 4 faces and 8 arms, and was extremely terrifying. Ning Lang's expression was ugly. He knew that the huge figure was Xiaoyan's heaven and earth avatar. If it was any other late-stage Yuanying cultivator that dared to be so arrogant in front of him, he would have already slashed out with the Xiaoshang sword. But now that he was facing Xiaoyan, he could clearly feel that the heaven and earth avatar contained an extremely terrifying power, causing him to feel an extreme sense of danger. Looking at Xiaoyan, who had a faint sneer and ridicule on his face, Ning Lang felt a surge of anger. When he had reached the primordial soul realm, not to mention Xiaoyan, even Xiaoyan's grandfather and great-grandfather were still unknown. Calculating from the timeline of the vast 1,000 worlds, it was clear that just a few years ago, Xiaoyan was just a small cultivator that he could not even look up to. But now, with his late-stage Yuanying cultivation, he could actually look down on him, who was in the primordial soul realm. This made Ning Lang so depressed that he almost wanted to vomit blood. At this moment, a voice rang out from beyond Heaven Mountain. Although it is somewhat unexpected that the great disciple of Xianmen has personally made this trip, I have also specially come because of this. An even more astonishing sword intent soared into the sky, turning into clouds and mist. It revealed that the cultivation of the moon sword was much more profound than that of the female sword cultivator. In the void, a thin middle-aged man appeared. He was the former Moon Reflection Sword Venerable, the current New Moon Sword Venerable, a great sword cultivator whose primordial soul realm had returned to the void realm. He looked at Xiao Yan and said indifferently, "Indeed extraordinary. With the help of the power of the treasure, a late-stage Yuanian cultivation can probably compete with my primordial soul realm. However, I have no interest in slowly exchanging blows with you today." The Moon Sword Venerable said to Ninglang and Zhongyan, "Duanyu Zhongyan, leave this person to me. The two of you take down the others." He shook his head and looked at Xiao Yan. "It's a pity that you've appeared here. We can't restrict the matter to the area of Beyond Heaven Mountain." Xiao Yan looked at the Moon Sword Venerable, and the disdain on his face became even stronger. "Oh, not bad. We've caught a big fish." The Moon Sword Venerable frowned slightly. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, and he looked down. In the mountain ridges at the foot of Beyond Heaven Mountain, an old monk dressed in moon-white monk robes appeared. His hands were behind his back, and he looked up at the sky which had already turned into a sea of flames with a smile. His expression was calm and tranquil. He just stood on the ground calmly, and not a single bit of magic power or aura leaked out from his body. He was just like an ordinary old monk. However, at this moment, in the midst of the lofty mountains and lofty ridges, his figure, which was not very tall, seemed to be able to support the heavens and the earth. His entire body shone with light, illuminating the world. Seeing this old monk, the Moon Sword Venerable's heart immediately sank. Great virtue. He has also attained the second level of the Buddhist golden body realm, and cultivated the rulidermic body? That old monk was Monk Great Virtue. He put his palms together and bowed to the Moon Sword Venerable. After the battle of vanquishing Buddhism in the past, Mount Shu finally has a new generation of Moon Sword Venerable. This old monk greets you here. As he spoke, Buddhist light soared into the sky from the top of his head, condensing into a huge Buddha-dermic body. It was completely golden and emitted red light. This Buddha sat on a lotus and a full moon wheel, and the throne below it was carried by 8 peacocks. He held a lotus in his right hand and a bell in his left. It was the image of the boundless light Rulai. In the past, when he was still at the Great Thunderclap Monastery, Monk Great Virtue was an esteemed monk at the peak of the first level of the Buddhist golden body realm. These years he had been staying in Xianmen Tianzong as a guest, and had been meticulously studying and cultivating the Buddhist Dharma. By sorting out the remnant chapters of the Mahavairokkana Sutra, and the immovable Buddha Sutra that Lin Feng and the others had sorted out and collected, as well as having many interactions with Zhu Yi's boundless light Bodhi lamp, he had finally successfully cultivated the boundless light Rulidermic body, and advanced to the second level of the Buddhist golden body realm. It was understandable that Xiao Yan had come over, but Xiao Yan and Monk Great Virtue's actual battle prowess was equivalent to 2 experts at the second level of the primordial soul realm. For them to have come together because of the internal strife in heavens beyond mountains, this was completely abnormal. The expressions of the Moon Sword Venerable, Ninglang, and Sword Venerable Heavy Smoke turned solemn. On heavens beyond mountains, a black-robed youth smiled and looked at the sky. At least I didn't lie about the military situation. At this moment, in the great hall at the peak of the mountain, Li Baitao and the others stared dumbfoundedly at the illusory scene of light and shadow in front of them. Originally, they wanted to use this to completely destroy the fighting spirit of Wu Yunliang and the others, but they did not expect to see such a scene that made them tremble in fear. Li Baitao was stunned, and suddenly turned to look at Wu Yunliang. "You have already made up your mind to completely side with Xianmen Tianzong? Could it be that after the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly, when you met the sect master of Xianmen sect alone, all these years, you were actually the one who beat the Shushan sword sect at their own game?" Wu Yunliang said calmly. "This was the most important decision in my life. Whether it was right or wrong, I can't be sure. But as Junior Li said, there is no turning back." Chapter 830. Li Baitao took a deep breath and managed to calm himself down with great difficulty. "Sect head senior brother, I've always known that you're decisive, but I also know that when it comes to the survival of the sect, you've always been cautious. You are betting so much this time?" Are you so sure that Xianmen Tianzong and the sect leader of Xianmen are fine? Wu Yunliang gave a rare bitter smile. I am not sure. If possible, I hope that this moment will never come. He looked at Li Baitao with a strange expression. Because I know that Mount Shu Sword Sect wanted to use my Heavenly Beyond Mountain as a thorn in their side to be used in the future. But if something happens suddenly like today, and I cannot contact Xianmen Tianzong, it will be difficult to coordinate. Therefore, after I told them the whole story, I made an agreement with the Celestial Sect of Wonders. If there is a strange change in my Outer Sky Mountain in the future, and I am unable to communicate with them in time, the Celestial Sect of Wonders must deal with it carefully. They will not blindly fall into your trap. Instead, they will verify it in many ways and finally make a plan. Li Baitao's expression also became strange. He stared at Wu Yunliang. Verify it in many ways? How? Wait a minute. Chu Yang? His gaze fell on Meng Chaoran, who was standing next to Wu Yunliang. Chu Yang is your backup channel to contact Xianmen Tianzong? Chu Yang had a strong rise in the sect. That year, he had a brilliant performance at the Kunlun Mountain Assembly. He had a deep relationship with his teacher Meng Chaoran. And he was also in the Golden Elixir period. In a sect like Heavenly Beyond Mountain, he could not be seen as an ordinary disciple. Li Baitao usually paid a lot of attention to Chu Yang. However, Chu Yang often left the mountain, and his cultivation was not weak. It was too difficult to monitor his every move. Li Baitao, who was in the Yuanying period, could not personally follow him. This time, Chu Yang had just left the mountain not too long ago, and there was no trace of him again. Li Baitao now realized that Chu Yang didn't really leave the mountain, because he had something important to do. Instead, Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran had a feeling that a storm was coming, so they left Chu Yang as a backup. At this moment, Chu Yang had probably snuck back to Beyond Heaven Mountain, and informed Xianmen Tianzong's people after confirming the situation there. Although honorable swordsmen of the Extreme Yin sect, and the others had high cultivation, they were not the rulers of Beyond Heaven Mountain after all. Since Wu Yunliang and the others had arranged for Chu Yang to be their backup, they must have made many arrangements to allow him to enter and leave Beyond Heaven Mountain freely and secretly. The Lunar Honorable Swordsman trio had spent most of their efforts on concealing themselves and ambushing Xianmen Tianzong's group. In the end, they had missed Chu Yang. Wu Yunliang sighed and said, If you had discussed it with me, I might have made the same decision. But I would inevitably have more hesitations. But what you did before was tantamount to helping me make up my mind. At the first sight of Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade together, the morale of Li Baitao's side was on the verge of collapse. He simply did not deactivate the light and shadow illusion. His expression was like crying and laughing at the same time. He kept shaking his head and said, Haha, this is really ridiculous. Meng Chaoran looked at the illusionary void that everyone was in. Silently he asked, Second senior brother, is there still a need to maintain the formation? Li Baitao's gaze focused on Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran. He said in a deep voice, If you follow my path, there is still room for maneuver. If I fail and you hand over our group to Xianmen Tianzong will most likely not continue to make things difficult for Beyond Heaven Mountain. But what you are doing now will only make the Shu Mountain Sword Sect view our entire Beyond Heaven Mountain as traitors and deceivers. They will think that we have joined hands with Xianmen Tianzong to set up a trap for them. When the Shu Mountain Sword Sect takes revenge, our Beyond Heaven Mountain will inevitably suffer a calamity. Just like what I said before, even if Xianmen Tianzong is willing to go to war with the Shu Mountain Sword Sect in a thunderous rage, our fellow sect members of Beyond Heaven Mountain who have died will ultimately not come back to life. You have completely tied yourselves to Xianmen Tianzong. In the future, you can only walk the path of darkness. Meng Chaoran sighed and did not say anything. Wu Yunliang also shook his head. Second junior brother, if we had known that you would do such a thing today, our response would have been completely different. At the very least, we would have thought of a way to secretly let you go. But right now, under the eyes of Xianmen Tianzong, there is nothing we can do. Just like you said, we can only completely stand on the side of Xianmen Tianzong. Otherwise, we will offend both sides. Li Baitao looked up to the sky and sighed. He laughed at himself and directed the cultivators outside to disperse the formation. At this moment, the sky outside had already turned into a mess. The Beyond Heaven Mountain disciples in the main hall finally realized that there was an earth-shattering battle going on outside. The formation no longer isolated the space, but it still played a protective role. Wu Yinliang, Li Baitao, and Meng Chaoran looked at the battle outside and sighed together again. Even the aftermath of the battle between the two sides was causing their sect's defensive formation to shake. Zen Master Dade used the fighting technique of the Infinite Light Buddha scripture, the 3,000 times illumination technique. Each and every one of them magnified the light and continuously used the Buddhist magical powers of the Great Freedom Buddha sect. It was difficult to determine the victor. Since ancient times, the Tempest Monastery and the Shushan Sword sect had never been on good terms. During the Battle of Buddhist Annihilation, Shushan had even participated in it personally. Now that Zen Master Dade had met the sword cultivators of Shushan, he would naturally not be polite. His extreme Yin sword was extremely Yin and soft. Its destructive power was actually much stronger than it looked. At the same time, it had many changes and was best at using softness to overcome hardness. However, its offensive power was inferior to the Little Shang and Li Xiong swords. However, his opponent was a Buddhist monk, Zen Master Dade. He cultivated the Infinite Light Buddha scripture, so he could stabilize his body. He was not rash or impatient. His fighting style was also steady. When the two of them fought, no one could think of winning quickly. Putting aside the fact that Zen Master Dade did not have full confidence that he could defeat Zen Master Dade. Even if he could, it would definitely be a long and fierce battle. Although Zen Master Dade had a soft and flexible personality, he was also a sword cultivator. If it were any other time, he would not mind continuing to fight with Zen Master Dade. He wanted to see whether the Tempest Temple's Buddhism was magnificent, or his Shu Mountain Sword sect's Sword Tao was sharp. His predecessor, Sword Lord Tain, who was also his master, had died in battle at the Great Lane Temple. His impression of Buddhism was extremely terrible. However, the current situation made Zen Master Dade very impatient to continue tangling with him. On the other side, Sword Venerable Ning Lang of Broken Mountains and Sword Venerable Heavy Mist were already in dire straits against Xiaoyan, even though they were fighting 2 against 1. The violent nether evil flame dyed the entire sky a gloomy and ferocious bluish-purple, as it swept across everything. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist cultivated the Tain sword. It was extremely tough, using softness to overcome hardness. It could defend itself, and was barely able to resist. Sword Venerable Ning Lang of Broken Mountains, who cultivated the Little Shang sword, was miserable. He could only fight with Xiaoyan head-on, but he was not his opponent. If not for Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's help, he would have already been injured by Xiaoyan. The 5 divine badges above Xiaoyan's head shone with a 5-colored brilliance, blocking Ning Lang's Little Shang sword. The Dharma idol roared, and the dark evil flame once again surged. Xiaoyan stretched out his hand and the huge, blazing heaven splitting slash appeared in his hand. A blazing heaven splitting slash that seemed to split the heavens, and the earth came crashing down on Ning Lang's head. Ning Lang directly manifested his own soul incarnation, transforming into a 10-meter long, as wide as a door, heavy and powerful, fierce and overbearing huge bronze sword. Pushing the Xiaoshang sword to the limit, it broke through Xiaoyan's blazing heaven splitting slash. However, Xiaoyan laughed coldly and changed his sword stance. The dark evil flame that filled the sky transformed into a fierce purple tiger. Countless light patterns appeared all over its body, and a piercingly cold killing intent that could cut through the heavens and the earth and exterminate all living beings instantly spread out. The dark evil flame, power that Xiaoyan had controlled for the longest time, and was most proficient in, was activated to its limit. He became one with the sword, and his own magic power connected with the evil flame, Overlord sword, combining with the fierce flaming tiger. It roared and pounced towards the bronze sword formed by Ning Lang's Yuan Shun. With a swipe of its claws, an earth-shaking sound of metal clashing could be heard. A crack had already appeared on the bronze sword formed by Ning Lang. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist had no choice but to give up on his defense. His cloud-like sword chi spread out and entangled with the white tiger formed by the dark evil flame, helping Ninglang out of his predicament. The white tiger roared and spoke in human language. It sneered and said, "I was waiting for you." Evil and strange black flames suddenly surged out of the white tiger's body like rolling black smoke, entangled with sword venerable heavy mist sword chi. These black flames twisted and took shape in the sky. It had a head like an ox, horns like a deer, eyes like a prawn, ears like an elephant, neck like a snake, abdomen like a snake, scales like a fish, claws like a phoenix and palms like a tiger. There were 81 scales on its back, representing the number of 9 by 9. Its breath formed clouds and sounded like a copper plate. It had a beard beside its mouth and a pearl under its chin. This was the shape of a true dragon. The black flames transformed into a huge dragon that soared in the sky and swallowed all the cloud-like sword chi. Even if the sword chi struck the body of the black flame dragon, it was like throwing a stone into water. It only caused a ripple and then disappeared. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame. And the image of the green dragon wanted to swallow the heavens and the earth. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's face was livid. She discovered that her sword chi and dermic powers were being rapidly swallowed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame. Regardless of whether she was attacking or defending, she wanted to withdraw her sword chi and defend with all her might again. But a fierce sword hum sounded from within the black flame dragon. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame dissipated and Xiao Yan's figure was revealed. He said indifferently, "It's too late." He held the evil radiance overlord sword in his left hand and grabbed at the void in front of him with his right hand. The heaven and earth avatar above his head did the same. In an instant, it covered the sky as if endless evil flames and the mysterious heaven tribulation flame had gathered together and turned into a black-purple lotus flower that smashed down toward Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's head. Firmament Flaming Lotus. After Xiao Yan achieved the heaven and earth avatar and successfully advanced to the late-stage Yuanying realm, his dual flaming lotus also had the power to burn the heavens. Sword Venerable Heavy Mist's pale face turned a little black under the illumination of the terrifying flames. He immediately revealed his primordial spirit incarnation. A soft sword that looked illusory and misty. The sword light was like smoke in water, blocking the terrifying explosive power of Xiao Yan's firmament flaming lotus. On the other side, Sword Venerable Ninglang of Broken Mountains also decisively activated the Xiaoshang sword. It turned into an extremely condensed, domineering, and forceful sword light that was thousands of zhang long. It swayed in the distorted void, turning a short distance into a long distance. Then it crossed the endless void with a step and arrived in front of Xiao Yan, helping Sword Venerable Heavy Mist to block the attack. Flames exploded, and the sky was filled with sword light and flowing fire. The 5 divine badges above Xiao Yan's head flickered with light, blocking the vicious sword light and shaking violently. Although the 5 divine badges were strong, Xiao Yan himself had yet to form his primordial spirit. He couldn't completely unleash the power of this magical treasure, and he couldn't completely defend against the Shushan sword cultivators. Therefore, as long as he blocked most of the sword light, Xiao Yan would be able to defend against the remaining sword light. Although Ninglang and Sword Venerable Heavy Mist had blocked the fiery lotus, they didn't even have the time to catch their breath when they saw the bluish-purple nether evil flame and the black heavenly tribulation flame in front of them dispersing instead of collapsing. Instead, they gathered together again. At the same time, a large amount of dazzling golden flames gathered together, like a rising sun. The golden true fire of the sun, the nether evil flame, and the heavenly tribulation flame gathered again, forming a small blackish-purple lotus. The golden stamen on the lotus swayed continuously in the wind. Chapter 831. In the Sea of Fire, a tall giant with 4 heads and 8 arms stood upright. The milky white pure yang true fire had transformed into his body. The 8 trigrams had transformed into 8 arms, and the true sunfire, Nanmingli fire, nether evil flame, and mysterious sky tribulation flame had transformed into 4 heads. In front of the giant, there was a small black and purple lotus. The golden stamen on the lotus trembled slightly, looking delicate. However, the expressions of Ning Lang and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke turned grim. They could clearly sense the terrifying might contained in Xiao Yan's triple flaming lotus. Xiao Yan used the combination of dark evil blaze, true sunfire, and mysterious heavenly tribulation flame for this triple flaming lotus. It was the combination of 3 types of true fire, and it was the most destructive combination. Now that Xiao Yan, who was in the late Yuanying realm, used it, he could surpass most first-tier primordial spirit realm cultivators without any external help. The seemingly calm but extremely violent power descended from the sky, illuminating the grave expressions of Ning Lang and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke. Even the Grand Een Sword Lord was alerted by this tri-flaming lotus. He took a deep breath, and the mist-like sword intent dissipated to reveal a thin, scholarly projection of a short and thin scholar, who was wielding a sword in one hand. This was none other than his return to void stage Dharma body. The power of the great Een Sword Lord in the sky was activated to the extreme, and it actually changed from extreme Een and extreme softness to extreme Yang and extreme toughness. The instantaneous change allowed him to forcefully shake off Zen Master Dade's Buddhist power that he was fighting with. And then he charged toward Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's triple flaming lotus might not be able to kill Ning Lang and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke, but the 2 primordial spirit realm Shushan sword cultivators would not have it easy either. The great Een Sword Lord unleashed his sword force, and his sword will and sword chi transformed into a white cloud, protecting himself, Ning Lang, and venerable swordsman Heavy Smoke. The violent fire lotus landed on the cloud and instantly exploded, turning into a sea of flames. A huge pillar of fire soared into the sky, as if it had punched a huge hole in the sky. Almost everything within a radius of 1,000 li was reduced to nothingness, and all the plants were instantly reduced to ashes. The peaks of the Kunlun mountain range, which had existed since ancient times, were scorched white. Many of the rocks collapsed and turned into piles of white ash. Such a terrifying explosive power, even the destructive power of the aftermath was shocking. Jie Yu and the other 3 demon kings did not dare to be careless, and had to defend with all their might. Zen Master Dade waved his hand, and a Buddhist light enveloped Beyond Mountain, protecting it from damage. The cloud that the Tai Een sword had turned into was bombarded by the raging fire. It rolled and rolled like a boiling sea, but it did not shatter. Endless wisps of mist-like condensed sword intent and sword chi layered over each other, turning well-tempered steel into softness. 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, and even hundreds of millions of times, they weakened the explosive power of the firmament flame lotus layer by layer. Every strand of sword intent looked as fine as a strand of hair. Not to mention the firmament flame lotus. Even an ordinary person would be able to tear those strands of sword intent apart. However, they were actually extremely condensed and flexible. It would be extremely difficult to destroy any strand of sword intent. These hundreds of millions of chi strands were not just accumulating and defending passively. Every chi strand was constantly swaying, operating according to the mysteries of the lunar sword, and interconnecting with each other. The hundreds of millions of chi strands intertwined and successfully blocked Xiao Yan's terrifying 3-flame lotus. In the next moment, the sword will of the lunar sword venerable led, and countless chi strands spread out, attacking Xiao Yan. After experiencing the boundless sea of fire, many chi strands were burned, but more chi strands surged up. Every chi strand was controlled by the lunar sword venerable, as if they had their own independent lives and thoughts, and kept circling in the sea of fire. Even if they were burned, they would open up a path for other chi strands. For a moment, countless chi strands formed by the lunar sword will surged, and actually had the effect of cutting off the flow. They wanted to flatten the boundless sea of fire in the sky. Xiao Yan smiled, and his whole body was surrounded by black smoke. The image of the azure dragon formed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame spread out again, circling in front of him. The endless mysterious heaven tribulation flame spread between heaven and earth, and began to crazily devour the sword chi of the lunar sword venerable. As it continued to devour, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame became more and more terrifying. Not only was it not consumed by the chi strands, but it became more and more powerful. In the end, the black fire was so monstrous that it covered the sky and the sun, and the nearby sky was completely dark. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame's brutal and greedy power made even the lunar sword venerable frown. Even though a small number of chi strands broke through the tribulation flame azure dragon, they could not break the defense of the 5 divine badges in front of Xiaoyan. With the protection of the 5 divine badges, Xiaoyan completely gave up on his own defense. Instead, he pushed his magic power to the extreme to fight with the lunar sword venerable. If it were sword venerable Little Shang, sword venerable Li Meng, or sword venerable Xiaoyang, they could continue to increase the power of their attacks. The mysterious heaven tribulation flame's devouring power was limitless, but there was a limit to how much Xiaoyan, who was in the late Yuanying stage, could freely control. Although his magic power was shocking, he was still in the Yuanying stage. With the power of the mysterious heaven tribulation flame alone, a great sword cultivator at the 2nd tier of the primordial soul realm could still break it. If Xiaoyan increased the power of the mysterious heaven tribulation flame and exceeded a certain limit, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame might go out of control. At that time, even Xiaoyan's own magic power would be devoured. But that was a sword Dao that could be fierce, sharp, or vigorous. Although the lunar sword venerable's lunar sword was very exquisite and unpredictable, it was not suitable for a strong attack. Even if he increased the power, it would still be a slow grind with Xiaoyan. But in the current situation, a slow grind wouldn't solve the problem. It would only be futilely giving his sword chi and magic power to the mysterious heaven tribulation flame as firewood. His lunar sword venerable could withstand Xiaoyan's violent triflame lotus, but against the calamity flame azure dragon, his hands and feet were tied. It's a pity that my understanding of the lunar sword venerable is still insufficient. Otherwise, if I had mastered the lunar 4 void sword realm, how could I not deal with this little thief? The lunar 4 void sword realm was the highest realm of the lunar sword venerable. For void referred to being everywhere, traceless, endless, and all-pervasive. Training the sword to transform billions of strands of chi, gathering them together and turning them at will, was the ultimate defense of the lunar sword. However, for a swordsman and a killing weapon, their strongest point was always their offense. It was the same even for the soft and flexible lunar sword, and the lunar 4-less sword realm was the ultimate attack power of the lunar sword. But throughout all of Shushan, there were only a few who could master this sword technique at the 2nd tier of the primordial soul realm. Seeing that Xiaoyan's calamity flame azure dragon was getting fiercer and fiercer, the lunar sword venerable gave up on the offensive again, and used all his chi threads to protect himself. He also stopped attacking and focused on defense. Although the mysterious heaven tribulation flame could still devour his sword chi and magic power, the tough chi threads circled around and joined together to circulate endlessly. If the mysterious heaven tribulation flame wanted to devour them again, the difficulty would immediately increase by 100 times. The news had already spread. Beyond Heaven Mountain was located at the southern edge of Kunlun Mountain, not very far from Shushan. When the other Shushan sword cultivators received the news, they would definitely come to help. Although they had not clearly tested the strength of Xianmen Tianzong, and the small conflict had a tendency to escalate, which was somewhat out of the expectations of the lunar sword venerable and the others. But if a battle really broke out, the Shushan sword cultivators were not afraid. Xiaoyan saw through his plan at a glance and revealed a cold smile. Guarding a turtle shell and waiting for reinforcements? Come to think of it, why do I always encounter opponents like you? Hearing this, the lunar sword venerable frowned slightly. Then he saw Xiaoyan snicker, but there was a fierce glint in his eyes. I'm afraid you still don't know? What I'm best at is smashing turtle shells. As he spoke, 3 colored fire lotuses appeared one after another. The Yang fire lotus was formed by the pure Yang true fire, solar true fire, and Nanmingli fire. The Yin fire lotus was formed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame, dark evil blaze, and Nanmingli fire. Each had 3 lotuses, and they stood on 2 sides, forming a huge yin-yang tai chi diagram. Like a stone mill, the lunar sword venerable and the others were squeezed in the center. Yin and yang rotated, and a majestic force crushed them continuously. The lunar sword venerable's face was as dark as still water. He fully unleashed the power of his return to void dharma physique. Strands of chi gathered together, and like clouds and mist, they helped him Ninglang and soared venerable heavy mist to resist the terrifying power of Xiaoyan's Yinyang burning sky formation. Xiaoyan stepped into the void and arrived above the clouds and mist. The heaven and earth Dharma idol above his head released a deafening roar. A milky white sea of pure young true fire spread out in the sky. The tribulation flame azure dragon, evil radiance white tiger, heavenly radiance vermilion bird, and leaf fire black tortoise appeared together. The distant sky seemed to have opened up, and 28 constellations shone faintly in the sky. They stood in 4 directions, and each direction had 7 constellations. Although Xiaoyan didn't truly draw upon the power of the 28 constellations to strengthen himself, his martial will was faintly resonating with the 4 symbols and 28 constellations in the heavenly river galaxy. Above Xiaoyan's heaven and earth Dharma idol, light and shadow wavered, forming an illusory starry sky. The 28 constellations in the starry sky were dazzling. This was Xiaoyan's own martial will. It was almost tangible, and it shook the heavens and earth. In the illusory starry sky of light and shadow, the tribulation flame azure dragon merged with the 7 constellations of the azure dragon of the east. Horned wood dragon, Kong gold dragon, D-earth raccoon, Room sun rabbit, heart moon fox, tail fire tiger, and water leopard of winnowing basket. The evil radiance white tiger corresponded with the 7 constellations of the western white tiger. Wood wolf, gold dog, stomach pheasant, sun rooster, moon crow, fire monkey, and water ape. The heavenly radiance vermilion bird merged with the 7 constellations of the southern vermilion bird. Wood dragon, ghost goat, willow earth deer, star horse, moon deer of extended net, winged fire snake, and waterworm of Zhen. Finally, the leaf fire black tortoise merged with the 7 constellations of the northern black tortoise. Wood dragon, golden bull Nyo, earth bat of girl, sun rat of emptiness, moon swallow, room fire pig, and waterworm of wall. Xiaoyan smiled coldly as he looked at the clouds formed by the great Yin sword venerable's sword will. The heaven and earth Dharma idol above his head returned to his body, but he didn't put it away. Instead, he temporarily merged with Xiaoyan's physical body, merging his martial arts into one. His physical body's qi, blood, and magical powers. Under the impetus of his martial will, although Xiaoyan wasn't a pure warrior, he had merged his heaven and earth Dharma idol with his physical body. His magical powers nourished his physical body's qi and blood, causing his physical body to become extremely powerful at this moment. At the same time, because the great Yin sword venerable only defended and didn't attack, the 5 divine tokens also stopped defending. Instead, they poured all of their spiritual powers into Xiaoyan's body. The violent qi and blood made Xiaoyan seem even more scorching than the sun in the sky. The heat rose to an extreme, but it gradually faded away. His entire person was like the starlight in the vast universe, vast and boundless. The next moment, Xiaoyan raised his right hand and smashed it down towards the great Yin sword venerable with a force that could collapse the heavens. The 4 symbols and 28 constellations in the illusory light also came crashing down together with the flames that filled the sky, like a river of stars falling to the ground. Xiaoyan had comprehended the 4 symbols heaven opening scripture, and had comprehended a remarkable power 4 symbols Milky Way palm. Chapter 832. As Xiaoyan's palm landed, Sword Lord Great Yin, who was already trapped by the Yin-Yang burning sky formation, immediately sensed danger. The Great Yin sword catalyzed thousands of qi threads to materialize into a sword qi cloud. While facing the Yin-Yang burning sky formation's suppression, it also withstood the 4 symbols Milky River palm's attack. The terrifying explosive force caused the qi threads to shatter. A crack appeared on the sword qi cloud, revealing Sword Lord Great Yin's astonished expression. In the next moment, the Yin-Yang burning sky formation was also completely detonated by this domineering palm strike. There was an endless chain of explosions. The massive explosive force and the distorting force from the collapse of Yin and Yang worked together on the sword qi cloud that had already revealed a flaw. In the end, Sword Lord Great Yin's sword qi cloud was completely blown to smithereens. Xiaoyan had used the same method he had used to break Marquis Jinghuan's ruthless emperor battle robe. He repeated the same method again, using powerful explosive force to first open up a gap in the enemy's originally complete defense. Then he used the yin-yang burning sky formation's relentless attacks to completely destroy the enemy. Although Marquis Jinghuan had the ruthless emperor battle robe, it had been severely damaged in the past. Marquis Jinghuan had yet to attain the essence soul realm, so he couldn't withstand Xiao Yan's 4 fire lotus and yin-yang burning sky formation's killing blow. Although the Great Yin Sword Lord was a great sword cultivator at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm, and had pushed the defensive power of his Great Yin Sword cultivation to the limit, he was still unable to withstand it. The current Xiao Yan was much stronger than when he fought Marquis Jinghuan that day. Continuous explosions of flames filled the air. Even Sword Lord Great Yin's return to void stage Dharma body was injured by the explosions. Fortunately, Ning Lang and Sword Lord Heavy Smoke were helping to fend off the attacks. Otherwise, Sword Lord Great Yin's situation would be even worse. Xiao Yan's figure appeared in the sea of flames. He was like a fiend celestial that had walked out of a fiery hell. At this moment, he was filled with a sense of oppression. Xiao Yan's expression is also extremely pale. His divine abilities and mana are extremely violent and ferocious. Their power is peerless. But the consumption of mana is also extremely huge. Continuously using the yin-yang burning heaven formation, and the 4-symbol Milky Way palm, is also quite taxing on him. However, if he did not use the firmament flaming lotus, which was merged with the 4 great true flames, he would not be emptied out in one go. Even after Xiao Yan cultivated the worldly Dharma idol and reached the late-stage Yuanying realm, the firmament flaming lotus, which merged with the 4 great true flames, was still a heavy burden on him. If it had been like his battle with Marquis Jinghuan, and one of the true flames he fused with was a pure yang true flame, it would have been slightly better. However, if he wanted to maximize its power and fuse 4 kinds of true fires, the nether evil flame, the mysterious heavenly tribulation flame, the Nanmingli fire, and the true sun fire, the stability would still be relatively poor. At the same time, the casting time would be too long. If he used the 4 fiery lotus, his magic power would almost be exhausted. Therefore, in the years after he came back from Mingxi, Xiao Yan had been thinking about it seriously. He further studied the Tao of his own sect, and at the same time, studied the Astro-Sovereign martial arts from Zhu Yi. In the end, he made further progress on his 4 symbols martial arts and created the 4 symbols Milky Way palm. It was also extremely powerful and domineering, and it could also be used with the yin-yang burning sky array. Although its power was slightly inferior to the 4 fiery lotus, it could be used more freely. For example, even though he had consumed a lot of energy, Xiao Yan could still continue fighting with the enemy, and he wouldn't be completely exhausted. After Xiao Yan broke through the Great Yin Sword Lord's defense, Zen Master Dade, who had been guarding him from the side, didn't just stand by and watch. He immediately added a bright, pure, and extremely dazzling Buddhist light onto the Great Yin Sword Lord. At this moment, Ning Lang and Sword Lord Heavy Smoke were still struggling to resist the terrifying bombardment caused by the complete explosion of the yin-yang burning sky array. They could only watch helplessly as Zen Master Dade's Buddhist light attacked the Great Yin Sword Lord, who had yet to recover his breath. Boundless light surged into the Great Yin Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body. There wasn't much sound, and there wasn't much of a ripple, but the Great Yin Sword Lord's expression changed drastically. In the next instant, a sliver of light suddenly appeared on his return to void Dharma body. Immediately afterward, more and more thin beams of light shot forth from within his Dharma body. At the same time, cracks began to appear on the Great Yin Sword Lord's Dharma body. The light emanating from the Great Yin Sword Lord's body became more and more dazzling, as if his Dharma body was an eggshell from which boundless light was about to burst forth. This was one of the most powerful Buddhist divine abilities in the 3000 illumination technique of the Infinite Light Buddha Sutra, the Zen Light of Great Liberation. Zen Master Dade's Zen Light of Great Liberation was aimed at shattering the Great Yin Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body, and sending it to paradise. Nice! What a great Xiao Yan! And you Zen Master, what a great Zen Light of Great Liberation! The cheeks of the Great Yin Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body were also riddled with cracks. Boundless light seeped through the cracks, making him appear extremely sinister and sinister. Amid his enraged roar, a wisp of faint mist suddenly surged out from the great Een Sword Lord's body. The mist shimmered with a lustrous light, and the sword intent of the great Een Sword emanated from it. However, this sword intent was far more powerful than the great Een Sword Lord's. This wisp of faint mist enshrouded the great Een Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body, and forcibly suppressed Zen Master Dade's Zen light of great liberation. Zen Master Dade's white brows twitched slightly. The sword intent of a Tao integration stage sword cultivator? The wisp of mist swept up the great Een Sword Lord, Ninglang, and Sword Lord Zhong Yan, and they all flew into the distance. The great Een Sword Lord's original intention was to wait for reinforcements and delay Xiao Yan and the others here. Thus, he hadn't used this final trump card. However, he didn't expect Xiao Yan to be so ferocious. If he didn't leave now, he would be in great danger before his fellow sect members arrived. Xiao Yan's brows furrowed, and he picked up the evil radiant tyrant sword. Golden wings spread open on his back, and the true sunfire transformed into the image of a vermilion bird. He tore through the void and chased after the great Een Sword Lord and the others. After using the heavenly radiant vermilion bird body of the four symbols martial Tao, Xiao Yan raised the evil radiant tyrant sword with both hands and slashed down. Evil radiant white tiger slash. The sword intent was busy carrying the great Een Sword Lord and the others away, and suppressing the Zen light of great liberation. However, Xiao Yan's sword slashed down, and one of the arms of the great Een Sword Lord's return to void Dharma body was directly severed. The Zen light of great liberation that had been suppressed earlier also took this opportunity to wreak havoc, and a large amount of light splattered out like blood. Great Een Sword Venerable let out a miserable groan. Xiao Yan was also shaken by that sword intent until he vomited blood and flew backwards. Xiao Yan. A fierce roar resounded through the sky, and the great Een Sword Lord was swept away by the sword intent mist. He stared at Xiao Yan with eyes that seemed to be spewing fire. Xiao Yan sneered and raised his hand to wipe away the blood at the corner of his mouth. In the great hall on Beyond Heaven Mountain, Wu Yunliang, Li Baitao, Meng Chaoran, and the others were silent as they watched the great battle finally end and the smoke gradually dissipate. The upper echelons of Beyond Heaven Mountain looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. They sighed and had complicated expressions. One of the personal disciples of the Taoist sect's master, one of the 6 lineages sword masters of the Mount Shu sword sect. Wu Yunliang sighed softly. In the Ying Sea, the personal disciple of the Taoist sect's master, Zhu Yi, almost defeated the Eastern Heavenly Gate's first-tier primordial spirit transformation cultivator, Xiao Qingcheng, with his late-stage Yuanying cultivation. After that, he defeated the Great Qin Dynasty's second-tier primordial spirit transformation cultivator, King Jingfang Shilin. At that time, we all found it hard to imagine. Now that we have personally witnessed the battle between Xiao Yan and the Mount Shu Sword sect's great Een Sword Lord, we finally know that there are truly such amazing people in this world. Even though the great Een Sword Lord has just refined his spirit to return to the void not long ago, he is still a true second-tier primordial spirit transformation cultivator. Li Baitao was silent. After a long time he shook his head slightly. If the Taoist sect's master is deliberately mystifying this time, then forget it. If he really goes missing this time, his enemies will definitely form the exterminating Xian coalition army. This is because for Xianmen Tianzong's enemies, this is probably the best opportunity. Otherwise, when Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the rest have proven their primordial spirit transformation, it will be much more difficult to deal with Xianmen Tianzong. The potential of this sect is really shocking. When this potential is completely transformed into strength, 99% of the forces in the Divine Land will have to look up to them. Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran did not speak. At this moment, Li Yuanfang, Jieyu, and the rest had already arrived at the main hall. Li Yuanfang cupped his hands towards Wu Yunliang. Sect leader Wu, according to the previous agreement, your sect can head to the vicinity of Cloud Mirror City to rebuild your sect. This time, your sect has sacrificed a lot. I, Xianmen Tianzong, have seen it all and will remember it. Elderly is too polite. Wu Yunliang composed himself and nodded. This is what we agreed upon. If we do not act according to the agreement, we will have to thank Xian sect for protecting us. Li Yuanfang said. This matter should not be delayed. Please mobilize your sect as soon as possible. Wu Yunliang replied. Of course. I will immediately give the order. I will not delay Xian sect's time. He turned his head to look at Li Baitao and the rest, who were frozen in place. Then he cupped his hands towards Li Yuanfang and said, Tian's Beyond Mountain is unfortunate. These traitors have appeared, and they even attracted the cultivators of Shu Mountain Sword Sect to ambush Xian sect. I am so ashamed that I cannot show my face. Elderly, please deal with this. Li Yuanfang shook his head. Your sect has its own rules. I will not interfere. Sect leader Wu, please deal with this according to the rules. After hearing Li Yuanfang's words, Li Baitao and the rest's faces became even more gloomy. Of course, Tian's Beyond Mountain also had its own rules for dealing with traitors. Every sect had these rules. The written descriptions were similar, but the final punishment was the same. Traitors had to die. Wu Yunliang sighed and steeled his heart to make a decision. At this time, the elder of the previous generation said, Temporarily lock them up. We will discuss this later. Right now, the most important thing is to leave Tian's Beyond Mountain as soon as possible to prevent Shu Mountain's retaliation. Elder Xiao and the rest of Xian sect should not stay here for us. Wu Yunliang frowned slightly. If he brought Li Baitao and the rest to Cloud Mirror City, it would be terrible if Li Baitao and the rest did not give up and cause chaos in Cloud Mirror City. The elder of the previous generation sighed and looked at Meng Chaoran. Chaoran will be responsible for looking after them. Hearing this arrangement, Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran were silent for a moment before finally nodding. Although it happened suddenly, Wu Yunliang and the other higher-ups had already anticipated the worst and had secretly made some preparations. At this moment, the efficiency of mobilizing the entire Tian's Beyond Mountain to move was not too bad. After Li Baitao and the rest were purged, Wu Yunliang's powerful control, which usually did not reveal anything, showed itself. Groups of Tian's Beyond Mountain cultivators were led down the mountain in an orderly manner by Wu Yunliang and the rest. However, everyone was reluctant to leave Tian's Beyond Mountain, where they were born and raised. Xiao Yan's line of sight was actually always in the direction of Shu Mountain. He thought to himself, my response is tough, which is in line with our sect's usual style. However, I did not kill Sword Lord Lunar and the rest, so Shu Mountain will not be completely humiliated into anger. In this way, before Shu Mountain understands the situation of our sect, they should not act rashly. At most, they will change direction and continue to probe in small areas. As he was thinking, Xiao Yan's heart suddenly moved. HM? Third Junior Brothers FA Li Sound Transmission? Chapter 833. After listening to the message from Wang Lin, Xiao Yan's expression did not change, but his whole body erupted with a frightening aura. It was even more frightening than when he was fighting against Sword Lord Taiyin and the others. His eyes flashed with a cold light. There was no leakage of any spiritual power, but the atmosphere that had cooled down after the battle seemed to become scorching hot again. Wu Yunliang and the others felt a chill in their hearts. At the same time, they were also puzzled. They did not know what had provoked this eldest disciple of Xian Men. At the foot of Heavenly Mountain, the black-robed Chu Yang looked up at Xiao Yan in the sky. He had a faint ominous premonition. As far as he knew, although this eldest disciple of Xianmen Tianzong had a fiery temper, he had calmed down a lot over the years. There were not many things that could cause such a big reaction from him. In the void, Xiao Yan took a deep breath and completely restrained his aura. Everything returned to normal, as if everything that had just happened was an illusion. This made Wu Yunliang and the others even more puzzled. Li Yuanfang looked at Xiao Yan. After a moment of silence, Xiao Yan used his spiritual power to transmit a few words to Li Yuanfang. Although there was no change in his expression, Li Yuanfang's breathing paused for a moment. He looked at Xiao Yan, and the two brothers looked at each other without saying a word. Li Yuanfang looked at Wu Yunliang with a normal expression. Sect leader Wu, we have just received a message from our sect. We need to hurry back to the mountain as soon as possible. Please be quick. Please forgive us. Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran, and the others' hearts sank at the same time. However, at this moment, they had completely broken off their relationship with Shu Mountain. No matter what happened in Xianmen Tianzong, they could only go down the dark path. No problem. It was the sect that delayed everyone's time. Wu Yunliang nodded and personally went to supervise the disciples of Heavenly Mountain to leave. After everyone in Beyond Heaven Mountain was ready, Zen Master Dade used his magic power to sweep them away. Then he left with Xiao Yan, Li Yuanfang, and the others and rushed to the entrance of the mysterious heaven realm in the southern foothills of Kunlun Mountain. There, Lin Feng had set up a void teleportation portal that led directly to Cloud Mirror City, which could save them a lot of time. At the same time, a piece of news from Tianhuang Vast Land spread rapidly in the Divine Land through various channels. The successor disciple of Xianmen Tianzong, Zhou Yunsong, was captured by the mysterious golden cicada sage of the demon race and brought to Tianhuang mainland. Lin Feng, the leader of the celestial sect of wonders, who had always been indifferent, did not react to this. Not only did he not look for golden cicada, he did not even show up. The current her had the confidence to fight against any great demon in Heaven Wasteland, even if it was those great ancient demons that had hidden themselves from the world. Now, she truly had the capital to contend for the position of the new Saint Emperor of the demon race. Behind the Enchantress, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, Long Yi, Ant Umbrella, and many other great demons floated up from the abyss. Revealing his true form, Heavenly Wolf Great Sage, who had the appearance of a huge wolf, stared with a pair of bloody eyes and growled in a low voice. "We can finally see the light of day again." Long Yi was still dressed in white, and stood behind the Enchantress with a smile. The other great demons all bowed to the Enchantress and said, "We are willing to follow the Enchantress to conquer the world and hope that our Empress can ascend to the throne as soon as possible." "It's still too early to say that. I'm not like Thunder Abyss, who needs to increase my confidence in all aspects." The Enchantress's voice was still hoarse as she laughed softly. "A journey of 10,000 miles begins with a single step. We still have many things to do." Purple light flashed in her eyes, and it was as though she had passed through the boundless void and the barrier between the two worlds, landing on the Divine Land. "Yu Huang is indeed extraordinary. If it wasn't for me studying Yude Minghua all these years and seeing fragments of her actions, I wouldn't have known that the heavenly realm above Taishu Temple is actually the spirit sea of the 7 seas of heavenly primordial 7 seas. Back then, it was even sealed because of Yu Huang." The Enchantress closed her eyes. "There was a sudden change in Yude Minghua not long ago. I can faintly feel that it was a change in the traces that Yu Huang left in the spirit sea. The spirit sea reopened, and Taishu Temple entered it to clear away the traces that Yu Huang left behind. However, how mysterious is the spirit sea? It actually sealed again. According to the news from Golden Cicada, the Master of Celestial Gate is also missing. The jade capital mountain of Xianmen Tianzong suddenly appeared in the void, and the timing is also extremely coincidental. If I'm not wrong, the Master of Celestial Gate and many strong practitioners of Taishu Temple are probably still in the spirit sea." Bloody light flashed in Heavenly Wolf Great Sage's eyes. "Senior sister, you mean? The situation of Taishu Temple is still unclear. Who knows how many people are trapped in the spirit sea?" The Enchantress shook her head. "Furthermore, even if the 4 elders Tai, Jingyi, Qingyi, and Xuanyi aren't here, as long as the Haotian mirror is still here, it's not a small risk to enter the Divine Land blindly. However, it's indeed a pity that we demons didn't unify such a good opportunity. Otherwise, if we started the war between the two worlds now, we would be able to obtain complete victory." Long Yi smiled slightly. "But this doesn't mean that we don't do anything." The Enchantress's illusory face revealed what seemed to be a smile at the same time. "That's right, Taishu Temple is currently empty. It's more than enough to defend, but not enough to advance. It's convenient for us to act." Heavenly Wolf Great Sage grinned. "This time, no matter what we do, they can only watch. If we don't go to the Divine Land to find trouble, they should be thanking the heavens." The Enchantress said, "Let's spread the news." I believe many people will be willing to remove the nail that Taishu Temple left in infinite wilderness. It's been an eyesore for more than 4,000 years. She smiled leisurely. This time, we'll have to cooperate with Deep Thunder. At the same time, in the extreme north of infinite wilderness, the void suddenly split open. It was a hidden entrance to a medium-sized world. From the realm passageway, a giant golden-winged rock flew out. Its pitch-black eyes flashed with a cold and demonic golden light, its aura heavy and majestic. There seemed to be a purple glow rolling on its golden feathers. Its demonic power was extremely terrifying, as if it could tear the realm apart with a gentle flap of its wings. It was the Golden Rock Great Sage, Deep Thunder Golden Rock. He closed his wings and stepped on the void with his 2 claws, as if he was grabbing an invisible tree trunk. A pair of cold eyes stared at the distant sky. After a long time, a sigh resounded in the world. What a pity, what a pity. It's rare for Taishu Temple to be so weak. What a pity. However, although we can't go to the Divine Land, we can first remove the nail that Taishu Temple has left in infinite wilderness. Golden Rock Great Sage flapped his wings and disappeared into the sky. Behind him, Great Sage Cheongqi, Heavenly Wheel Golden Rock and other demons followed closely in the realm passageway of the medium-sized world, flying into the distance together. Since the war between the two worlds, Taishu Temple had extended its hands into infinite wilderness. Although it did not make any big moves, all the demons felt like they had a fishbone stuck in their throats. Even if Taishu Temple stayed there quietly, it still made it difficult for the demons to act freely. Now there was a chance to cut off the Taishu Temple's tentacles. For all the demons, it was a common demand. As the news of Taishu Temple and Golden Rock Great Sage spread, the entire infinite wilderness was shaken. Even many of the hidden great demons became restless. The Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage possessed Yudu Minghua and the secret of Yudu. They were also the targets of many other great demons. After spreading the news, they remained hidden behind the scenes, but they were also waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Long Yi followed behind the heavenly charm Great Saint, the corners of her mouth revealing a light smile. The Void Temple won't give in easily. This way, it's the same as our side, also restraining the forces left behind by the Void Temple. In the vast land of the Divine Continent, I believe quite a few interesting things will happen right now. At that moment, the curtains of chaos had completely opened in the Divine Land. The battlefield in the void was connected to the world of the King of the Underworld. Sinister winds were everywhere, and it was like the Netherworld. In the majestic and pitch-black Imperial Palace, in front of the Black Dragon throne in the main hall, Su Anda, the Hall Master of the Underworld Hall, stood calmly with his hands behind his back. Behind him, there were 5 figures standing side by side quietly. Su Anda smiled faintly and asked, "Have they already left?" Chapter 834. Behind Su Anda, 5 people stood side by side. One of them was King Chujiang. When he heard Su Anda's question, he answered, "The reincarnation sect has already set off. Shi Tianfeng's plan is very big. Not only did he personally set off, but the Sky Ghost Taoist Wu Xiusan, the Dark Lord, and Zhang Enrui also came with him. Among the 6 paths of reincarnation, only his own celestial Tao stayed behind to watch over the sect, and to keep Emo Shuluo in custody. In addition, the Mount Shu Sword sect and the Great Zhou dynasty have also made their moves." Su Anda nodded. "In that case, we also need to make preparations. Chu Jiang, you were also injured when you killed the disobedient officials. This time, you stay behind to watch over Yama and the others. I will leave the King of the Underworld's brush behind. You just need to cooperate with him. Bianqing, Dusher, both of you stay behind to help Chu Jiang with this matter." The 2 black-robed people on the left of King Chujiang were a young man and an old man. Both of them were at the first tier of the primordial spirit realm. They were King Bianqing and Dusher. Both of them bowed to Su Anda and said, "Your subordinates obey." Su Anda looked at the 2 people on the right of King Chujiang. "Mount Tai, Emperor Song, this time, both of you come with me." These 2 people, along with King Chujiang, King Bianqing and King Dusher, were the 10 Yama kings. One was called King Taishan, and the other was called Emperor Song. Like King Chujiang, they were both primordial spirit realm experts of the Void Return realm. Hearing Su Anda's order, they immediately bowed together. "It's our honor." Su Anda gently stroked his black beard and murmured, "This time, the timing is too good. If we can succeed in one fell swoop, even the previous big trouble will no longer be a concern." After saying that, black light surged around his body and swept up King Taishan and Emperor Song, disappearing from the hall. After watching them leave, King Chujiang, King Bianqing, and King Dusher walked to the left side hall together. There sat a young man in a black robe with golden edges. His chin was supported by his elbow, and he was resting with his eyes closed. On the table next to the black-robed young man, there was a long brush pen with a black handle and a golden tip on a wooden shelf. Its entire body was shining with brilliance. King Chujiang and the other two bowed to him. The black-robed young man didn't open his eyes and asked indifferently, "Su Anda and the others have set off?" "Yes, Your Excellency," King Chujiang answered. The black-robed young man called Ming Bai Huang nodded slightly. "Just keep an eye on Equality and Zhuanluan. Leave Yama to me." "Yes." King Chujiang and the other two bowed and left the side hall. At the same time, in the Divine Land in the southern wasteland, the void distorted as a group of experts flew towards the northwest direction. The person in the lead was a youth who looked to be only 14 or 15 years old. His face was like jade, and his appearance was elegant. He was dressed in white, and he seemed to be out of this world. It was as if he was a celestial being who had descended to this world. Behind him was an ordinary-looking elder with a medium build. He looked like an old man from the countryside. He said softly, "Sect Master, the reincarnation sect has gone all out this time. If other forces, such as the Great Zhou Empire, were to attack us, we wouldn't be able to stop them." The youth in front of the elder was the former sect master of the reincarnation sect, and the current sect master of the reincarnation sect, Shi Tianfang. 2 years ago in the vast thousand world, Shi Tianfang took advantage of the opportunity when other forces had their eyes on the Ying Ocean sect to go all out. He integrated the reincarnation sect and dealt a heavy blow to the alliance of the Azura Path, Hell Path, and Human Path. He then subdued the latter two, leaving only the strongest Azura Path struggling. Not long ago, he successfully subdued the Azura Path and finally unified the 6 paths of reincarnation, becoming the new sect master of the reincarnation sect. This was still a secret, and most people in the outside world still didn't know about it. Although he had completed his lifelong dream, Shi Tianfang wasn't blindly optimistic or complacent. When he heard the elder's question, he said calmly, "Of course we have to guard against the Great Zhou Empire, but we can't give up eating for fear of choking. This time, Xianmen Tianzong has changed. We can't miss this opportunity. Their white jade pillar probably hasn't been refined into a creation dharma treasure." Shi Tianfang's tone was a little ethereal. "Compared to that white jade pillar, I value their Yujing Mountain more." The elder nodded. "That's right. Other than the cultivation of the Taoist sect master, Yujing Mountain is the foundation of Xianmen Tianzong's rise." There was a hint of fanaticism in his eyes. "If the reincarnation sect can occupy Yujing Mountain, our strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds." This elder looked ordinary, but no one present would look down on him. This was because he was Wu Xusen, the sect master of the animal path of the 6 paths of reincarnation. His primordial soul was an expert who had returned to the void stage. Beside Wu Xusen was a middle-aged man in a Taoist robe with a stiff expression. He was one of the 6 paths of reincarnation, the sect master of the Hungry Ghost Path, the Sky Ghost Taoist. His tone was also calm and stiff, without any pause. "This time, if we obtain Yujing Mountain, even if the Taoist sect master returns to the Great Thousand Worlds, he can only sigh helplessly. He won't be able to cause trouble for the reincarnation sect. When that time comes, he should be the one being surrounded and killed by the other forces." Next to the Sky Ghost Taoist stood a middle-aged man. He looked elegant and wore a neat brocade robe. An exquisite small wine pot hung from his waist. There was also a leather bag hanging beside the wine pot. When he moved, there was a clinking sound. He carried a few small wine cups with him. He opened his mouth and said, "Although all the forces have a tacit understanding to take advantage of the disappearance of the Taoist sect master to dismember Xianmen Tianzong and weaken his strength while strengthening ourselves, in the end, what we will gain in the end will depend on our own means, just like in the battle to exterminate the Buddha." This person was Zhang Enrui, the sect master of the mortal path of the 6 paths of reincarnation. He was the key figure in Shi Tianfang's unification of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It was because of his secret betrayal that the alliance of the Azura sect, Hell sect, and the mortal path was dissolved by Shi Tianfang and the others. Cultivators of the mortal path cultivated the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures. Their state of mind improved extremely quickly, and they had the fewest bottlenecks in the process of cultivation. Therefore, it was easier for them to cultivate compared to other reincarnation sect cultivation methods. However, relatively speaking, their actual combat ability was the weakest. Cultivators usually relied on their slightly higher cultivation and magic power to make up for their disadvantage in spells and divine powers. Zhang Enrui was one of the 3-path integration experts of the reincarnation sect. Like Shi Tianfang, his cultivation was at the path integration realm, but his actual combat ability was much weaker. Putting aside Shi Tianfang, the sect master of the Hell Path, Dark Lord, who was next to him, at the 2nd-tier primordial soul realm. If he had the advantage and set up layers of killing arrays first, it would be hard to say who would win if Zhang Enrui fought him. However, it was precisely because of his misdirection that Emo Shuluo, the sect master of the Azura path, made a wrong judgment and fell into Shi Tianfang's trap. In the end, he was defeated like a landslide. The Dark Lord, who had been silent all this while, looked at Zhang Enrui with an unpleasant expression. Zhang Enrui did not care. Shi Tianfang turned to look at Wuxia, the Dark Lord, Taoist Sky Ghost, and Zhang Enrui behind him. Silently he said, "No matter what happened in the past, we are now representing the interests of the reincarnation sect. Our reincarnation sect has been in a state of disunity all these years, which is why we have been looked down upon. Now, it is time for us to speak out and announce to the world that the reincarnation sect has reappeared." Wuxia, Taoist Sky Ghost, and Zhang Enrui nodded. The Dark Lord did not speak, but he did not object either. Shi Tianfang knew that his foundation was not completely stable. If he wanted to truly integrate the 6 paths of reincarnation into the way it had been during its heyday, there was still a lot of work to be done. Strictly speaking, it was a very risky thing to expand when there was internal strife. However, Shi Tianfang was confident that he could control the situation. This time, the change in Xianmen Tianzong was a huge opportunity for Shi Tianfang. Therefore, he decisively led the other 5 paths of the reincarnation sect, excluding the heavenly path, to attack together. In fact, he also wanted to use this opportunity to continue working with the reincarnation sect. The only thing that Shi Tianfang felt regretful about was that time was still a little tight. Otherwise, if he had subdued the sect master of the Azura path, Emo Shuluo, who was also at the Dao integration realm, he would be much more confident in this trip. After the group walked for a while, Shi Tianfang stopped in his tracks. The others also stopped in their tracks. Shi Tianfang turned to look at the Beast Path Master, Wuxia, and the Hell Path Master, Dark Lord. "Follow the plan." Wuxia nodded. "Rest assured, Sect Master." The Dark Lord did not say anything else. He turned and left with Wuxia. After the Dark Lord and Wuxia left, the people of the reincarnation sect continued on their journey. Almost at the same time, at the border of the Great Zhou Empire and the Great Qin Empire, a crack appeared in the sky, and an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion walked out. It was the sect master of the Eastern Heaven Gate, Xiao Dongtian. He turned to look at Xiao Qingqing behind him. "I'm going. This time, the forces of the various families will join forces to destroy the Xian realm. If things go smoothly, the Eastern Heaven Gate will not only be able to take back all the things we lost in the Ying Ocean, but we will also be able to advance further." Xiao Dongtian did not say what would happen if things did not go smoothly, but Xiao Qingqing naturally understood. However, they had received many benefits from the Great Zhou Empire previously. This time, they had to give it their all. The Great Zhou Empire was restrained by the Great Qin Empire, and in turn, the Great Qin Empire was restrained too. The Eastern Heaven Gate was a mobile force that the Great Zhou Empire could use. This time, other than Xiao Dongtian, the Great Elder of the Eastern Heaven Gate, who was at the Void Reversion Realm, and Dao Master Dongming, who had assisted Xiao Dongtian in establishing the Eastern Heaven Gate, would also follow Xiao Dongtian to Kunlun Mountain. Xiao Qingqing and another cultivator at the first tier of the primordial spirit realm were left to guard the sect. Xiao Qingqing said, "I wish Father and Martial Uncle Dongming success." Xiao Dongtian and Dao Master Dongming, who was also white-haired and had a white beard, nodded at the same time. Without saying anything, they turned and stepped into the void again. Like the Underworld Hall, the Reincarnation Sect, and the Great Zhou Empire, the Mount Shu Sword Sect naturally received the news as well. On the main peak of Mount Shu, a rainbow of sword aura streaked across the sky and rushed toward the northwest. As for Swordsman Guanchong, Swordsman Little Shang, and the others who had picked up the injured Swordsman Lunar, and the other two, they had originally planned to return to Shushan. After receiving the news from their sects, they looked at each other, their eyes flashing with coldness. Elder Jie is already on his way. Even the twin sky peaks in the Mystic Heaven Realm, which is closest to this area, won't be able to protect them. Retribution has to happen quickly. If that's the case, why bother returning to Mount Shu? Let's go and settle the score with that little thief from Xianmen Tianzong. The few great sword cultivators immediately turned into sword auras and chased after Xiao Yan and the others. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.